Digimon Frontier released domestically in 2002. Just as Tamers, which came before it, Frontier tells an original story. In many ways, this series is a return to form, bringing back the concept of Digidestined whilst boasting a similar number of characters as the first season. On the other hand, Frontier marks a huge departure from the status quo by not pairing the Digidestined with a Digimon partner, instead opting to give the children the ability to become Digimon themselves. The way the Digidestined become a Digimon is via a new Digivolution process referred to as Spirit Evolution. This is something we will cover much more in depth during the story segment. Frontier, like Adventure 01, 02 and Tamers, also touches on real life issues such as bullying, exclusion, a lack of belonging, dealing with grief, a lack of self-worth, and even slavery. In this video, I will provide you a high-level overview of this series, and will share some of my overall thoughts towards the end. As always, for those of you short on time, timestamps have been included in the description box below. If you enjoy this sort of content, please do consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now before we get into the story, let's briefly go over some of the characters. This is Takuya. Takuya is the series' quintessential goggle-head, and the de facto leader of this new group of Digidestined. Like Tai, Takuya is an avid soccer fan, and also a hothead, often barging into battle without a second thought. His hot-headedness often causes him to clash with the rest of the group, especially Koji. Takuya acts as an older brother figure to Tommy, and over the course of the series he learns much about himself and what it takes to be a leader. He is the wielder of the spirits of flame. This is Koji. Koji is this series' loner. In a sense, he is a spiritual successor to Matt. Like Matt, he comes from what is stereotypically depicted as a broken family and also keeps his distance from the group. Koji keeps his feelings close to his chest, which often makes him come across as standoffish. Over the course of the series, Koji must learn to open up and work together with the other kids. By doing so, he is able to uncover a secret pertaining to his family and himself, a secret which will shock him to his core. Koji is the wielder of the spirits of light. This is Zoe. Zoe is the only female member of this new group of kids. She is a spiritual successor to Sora and Mimi. Like Sora, she dons a hat, and like Mimi, she is quite effeminate in her disposition. Zoe was initially born and raised in Italy, and upon moving to Japan she found herself isolated and struggling to make friends due to her differing background. Overtly like Mimi, she appears as a happy-go-lucky character, but as the series progresses, she must face her fears and overcome the hardships of her past. Zoe is the wielder of the spirits of wind. This is Tommy. Tommy is the youngest in the group and can be seen as a spiritual successor to a young TK. Unlike TK, his relationship with his older brother back in the real world is strained. Tommy has evidently been coddled by his parents, in which they would oblige his every request. This coddling also aided in Tommy being a victim of bullying. Unlike the others, he is not given a choice as to whether or not he embarks on this journey to the digital world. Tommy over the course of the series must overcome his timidness in order to survive the perils of the journey. Tommy is extremely fond of Takuya, looking to him as a role model and an older brother figure. Takuya shares this feeling as he has a younger brother back in the real world, and Tommy reminds Takuya of him. Tommy wields the spirits of ice. This is JP. JP is by far the oldest member of the group. You can say in some ways he is a spiritual successor to Joe. JP brings levity to the show with his upbeat and comedic personality. Even though back in the real world he found himself surrounded by people, deep down he always struggled with feelings of loneliness and low self-esteem. Even though he is someone who can easily get along with anybody, JP cannot help but feel like he has no real friends. He has an engineering mind, and his skills prove useful as the series progresses. Over the course of his journey, JP must learn to overcome his low sense of worth. He also has a fear of thunder, which makes it quite ironic that he is the wielder of the spirits of thunder. Some other important characters who travel the digital world with the Digidestined are Pokemon and Nemon. The two of them act as a guide for the Digidestined, helping them navigate the digital world and providing them insights into its history. Okay folks, now let's get straight into the story. Whilst his mother is getting things ready for his brother's birthday party, Takuya is sitting at the dinner table bored out of his mind. He suddenly receives a text on his cell phone, which simply asks him to press yes or no. Intrigued, he selects yes and a female voice begins to speak to him. She advises the young man that his destiny awaits him. This immediately piques his interest. The voice then asks he make his way to the Shibuya station. Realizing he doesn't have much time left, he rushes off. He follows the directions given, and on his way he is almost hit by a small lorry. Takuya finally makes it to the subway station. Just as he realizes that he hasn't got enough funds to pay for a ticket, the machine spits one out for him. He boards the train where he catches a glimpse of Koji. After both of them receive a text message at the same time, they make eye contact, which leads Takuya to wonder if Koji received the same message. The message advises Takuya to board a transfer train. Unsure of where to go, Takuya decides to follow Koji into an elevator. Takuya asks Koji if he got the same message as him, but Koji simply ignores him. The elevator drops below the typical floors and into an hidden area filled with more trains. Takuya receives another voice message, citing he must now choose a train to board. As he is having a think, we see Zoe, JP and Tommy board a train, albeit Tommy is pushed in by a couple of bullies by the name of Katsuharu and Teppei. Takuya also boards the same train. He sees Koji, who's on a different train, as he rides away via another tunnel. Takuya introduces himself to JP, Zoe and Tommy. Apparently JP and Zoe also received a message on their phones, just as Takuya did, but a sobbing Tommy explains how he didn't want to be there in the first place but was forced onto the train by the bullies. The train itself turns out to be a Digimon called Trailmon, who begins to speed up and groan. The light then turns off and all four are swept off their feet. Takuya sees images of Digimon superimposed on the others. Their cell phones are transformed into detectors, which are essentially digivices. The mysterious voice then welcomes them to the digital world, where they discover that the train is actually alive. Before Trailmon leaves, he explains that they have been dropped off at the Flame Terminal, which is at the heart of the Digimon village. He then goes on to tell them that they will need to find a spirit to return home. Tommy begins to freak out, and I mean freak out, as he attempts to cross the train tracks back home, despite the fact that the tracks are hanging in mid-air. Tommy ends up tripping. As Takuya goes after him, he is stopped by Bulkamon and Nemon, whom appear to be running from something. It turns out they were running away from Cerberumon, who cites he is seeking an ancient spirit, forcing the three onto the tracks, and as they fall, they take poor Tommy along with them. Luckily for the others, Takuya manages to break their fall. Takuya's detector reveals the human spirit of flame as cited by Bulkamon. Cerberumon arrives, so Takuya opts to grab a piece of rebar off the ground. He grabs hold of Cerberumon, who launches itself towards the spirit flame. Takuya also ends up inside the flame and calls out to the spirit, which enables him to undergo spirit evolution, allowing him to transform into a Gunimon.
It is time.
Cerberumon is shocked that a human has the ability to digivolve and goes on to launch an attack towards the others. A Gunimon protects them all, but having no prior battle experience, he initially struggles against Cerberumon. Takuya intuitively begins to get used to his newfound powers and is able to destroy Cerberumon. He goes on to scan Cerberumon's fractal code. Bulkamon carries with him an encyclopedia of sorts, and he explains that fractal code is in fact the essence of a Digimon. Takuya reverts back to his human form, and the mysterious voice from his phone cites he is a Digidestined and adds how Takuya himself chose to become one. Still confused about what just happened, Takuya tries to become a Gunimon once again, and he begins to thrash around his detector, which accidentally releases the stored fractal code, which fixes the surrounding land. As the town's citizens rejoice, Bulkamon explains to the kids how Cherubimon wreaked havoc on the world, stealing data and ruining the land. He cites the way to bring everything back to the way it was is to gather up and use fractal code. Meanwhile, Koji finally arrives at the Flame Terminal, where he is advised by the voice in his detector that he needs to find his spirit. Zoe is enthralled by this new world she has entered, but JP remains skeptical, so he tries to find a way home and takes Tommy with him. He attempts to bribe a Trailmon with some chocolate, but the train simply eats it and rides off. A group of Pagumon arrive seeking some chocolate too, but JP refuses and so they begin to attack he and Tommy, eventually driving them to an underground labyrinth where they continue to harass them. Whilst they search for JP and Tommy, Takuya and Zoe learn more about one another and she teases him for being 3 months younger than her. They stumble upon Tommy's detector and end up falling down the same tunnel. Realizing they are lost, Tommy begins to cry, so JP offers him some chocolate in order to cheer him up. The Pagumon arrive too and begin to attack them. Koji sees them both running and steps in. He goes on to beat the Pagumon with a pipe. Unfortunately, one of the Pagumon digivolves to Raremon. Takuya intervenes and spirit evolves into Agunimon. Agunimon is able to subdue Raremon, but before he can finish the job, he unexpectedly reverts back to his human form. Koji discovers the human spirit of light, which enables him to spirit evolve into Lobomon.
Time.
Execute! Spirit Evolution!
Lobomon is able to take down Raremon and Takuya goes over to help the now exhausted Koji, who sternly makes it clear that he doesn't need anybody's help. Koji introduces himself and cites he now owes Takuya a debt for saving him, and then proceeds to walk off. Parting ways with Koji, the Digidestined discover another Trailmon who can take them back to the human world, but they all decide to stay and head out of town, with Bulkamon and Nemon following. While travelling on the tracks, their detectors tell them to go to the forest terminal. The Digidestined follow the tracks as Bulkamon pleads with Takuya to use the power of Agunimon, one of the 10 ancient spirits, to restore the digital world via the use of fractal code. The kids all bond, with Takuya teasing JP, citing the reason he stayed must have been for Zoe. Zoe asks Tommy why he decided to stay in the digital world, in which Tommy cites he too wants to evolve so other kids will not pick on him anymore. They reach a small valley where the tracks break. On the valley walls, they discover the symbols of the 10 legendary warriors. Bulkamon informs the Digidestined with the tale of the digital world's past, where humanoid and beast Digimon fought for control over the world. The angel Lucimon came and brought peace, but he eventually grew corrupt and was overthrown by 10 legendary warriors. These legendary warriors left their spirits behind to rise again if trouble came. The Digidestined are then ambushed by a group of Candlemon who accuse them of trying to steal their legendary artifact. Bulkamon informs them that Takuya inherited the human spirit of flame. The Candlemon elder is shocked and goes on to invite them to a ceremony to be held at the Candlemon village. It turns out to be a trap in which the Candlemon attempt to render them unconscious via some sort of smoke. The kids resist being put to sleep, so the Candlemon begin to attack, which forces them to escape into the river. Tommy immediately begins to drown as he cannot swim, but Takuya helps keep him afloat. Takuya then offers himself up as a distraction to let the others get away. The other three stumble upon an ice cave as Agunimon fights off the Candlemon. Upon seeing Takuya backed up against the corner, Tommy recounts the various times Takuya protected him. He wishes for the ability to evolve so that he can help Takuya. Time is of the essence as Agunimon is about to be swarmed, so Tommy does not wait around and rushes valiantly to Takuya's aid. Tommy douses the 2 Candlemon with water. He voices how he refuses to be just that little kid who's in the way all the time. Tommy is rewarded for his bravery as the human spirit of ice appears before him. This enables Tommy to spirit evolve into Kumamon. He easily takes out one of the Candlemon, but one of them digivolves to Wizardmon. Wizardmon uses illusions to trick Agunimon, going on to form multiple copies of itself. Kumamon sees through this technique as he identifies that only one of them has a shadow. This allows Agunimon to take Wizardmon out. The Candlemon elder apologizes, citing it was all a test as their intent was to see if Takuya truly had a spirit and also to confirm if they were worthy of wielding the spirits. The scanned fractal code fixes the broken bridge above, which allows Koji and the Trailmon he's travelling on to pass through the valley. On the way to the forest terminal, the Trailmon advises Koji that it is taking a break for the night, so Koji takes this opportunity to rest up too. The following day, the other Digidestined travel along the train tracks until they reach an intersection in the tracks. Zoe and Takuya cannot agree on which direction to go, as Takuya wants to go right, but Zoe wants to go left, which will take them towards the forest, where she figures that the forest terminal will be. Tommy chooses to go with Takuya, while JP, Bokumon and Nemon follow Zoe. Zoe's group end up in a place called the Breezy Village, which is the same area Koji is currently in. Koji, who was left behind by his Trailmon, follows the tracks, and the others take a break in the village. Zoe stumbles upon a group of Floramon who greet and host the group. The Floramon explain that Breezy Village used to be a tourist location, but the trains rarely run nowadays. To repay their kindness, Zoe agrees to help Floramon plant trees with JP's help. Takuya and Tommy are forced to turn away from their path when it begins to crumble beneath them. This also proves that Bokumon was not lying when he stressed to them earlier how unstable the digital world had become due to Cherubimon's evil. Zoe and JP begin planting, but they are stopped by the Mushroomon brothers, who cite how planting trees and flowers is a big waste of time. The brothers launch their giggle grenades, which causes the Floramon to begin laughing uncontrollably. It's made clear that in the past the brothers and the Floramon were friends. Bokumon cites how the Mushroomon have been corrupted by Cherubimon's evil magic. Frustrated with the brothers, Zoe slaps one of them. JP arrives and insults them, so they begin to chase after him. The human spirit of wind emerges and JP gets excited, thinking this is his time to evolve. The spirit flies past JP and straight to Zoe, allowing her to evolve into Kazimon.
It is time.
Exit camp! Period evolution!
She easily gains the upper hand against the Mushroomon, so they combine into one by digivolving into Woodmon. Kazimon manages to momentarily stun Woodmon with an OP booty tap, love tap as she calls it. Woodmon recovers and swats her out of the sky, causing her to revert back to her human form. As JP rushes over to Zoe, Koji arrives and evolves into Lobomon. Lobomon easily defeats Woodmon and goes on to scan his fractal data. Woodmon's data restores Breezy Village. The Mushroomon and Floramon bury the hatchet and live together once again in peace. Koji goes off on his own again, while Takuya and Tommy reunite with the rest of the gang. Zoe excitedly informs the two that they missed a momentous moment when she evolved for the first time, but Takuya and Tommy don't believe her one bit. The group arrive at a wind factory and see a large group of marching Kakuamon. They witness the Kakuamon stumbling over one another. Knowing that there must be food there, they opt to enter the factory, but JP's lazy ass asks Takuya to bring him some food. His request is denied by Takuya. We begin to see how JP's confidence has been knocked, as he's the only one yet to evolve, which has made him more timid and reserved, versus Tommy, who's become a lot more confident since he became one with the human spirit of ice. The Minamon guards warn them to turn back, but Zoe manages to convince them that they have visited to take a tour, and so the Minamon allow them in. While on the tour, JP has to go to the bathroom. On his way back to the group, he hears some noise which sounds like screams, but before he can investigate, the others call him back. They finally go to the cafeteria but are disappointed to find that the only food being served are batteries. Disappointed and hungry, the Digidestined decide to call it a day and leave. They spot huts that the Kakuamon live in, and they see their poor living conditions. The kids learn that the Goblimon attacked them one day. Upon capturing them, they immediately put them to work in the factory, thus subjecting them to a life of slave labour. The Kukuomon explains how insidious the Goblimon truly are, explaining they take advantage of the fact that Kukuomon are naturally a timid breed of Digimon. As part of their flight or fight response, their bodies emit an electrical current up to 1 million volts from the tip of their heads. So the Goblimon scare them all the time in order to use the electricity they generate to power the factory, even going on to douse them in water as well as hang them upside down as part of their barbaric methods of extracting as much electricity out of them. When JP suggests that they leave, Takuya becomes annoyed, knowing that the Goblimon guards would only track them down and destroy them. The Kukuomon point out that they're not really fighters, but they come to realize that their only option is to either stay and fight or run away. JP still disagrees with the plan and continues to complain whilst the group strategizes. He lets slip the only reason why he's so against the plan is because he's yet to evolve like the others. Underneath it all, he feels like he is useless and the team don't want him. As he walks out to blow off steam, one of the young Kukuomon follows him and asks him if they will ever be free. JP assures it that they will free them. Agunimon, Kazumon and Kumamon along with the Kukuomon begin to make their way into the factory. They encounter Snymon, the factory's leader. On the outside, JP continues to fall into the depths of his insecurity, frustrated that he, unlike the other three, cannot evolve yet. The younger Kukuomon tries to run into battle but is stopped by the elder. The little one cites how he believes in himself and the cause they are fighting for. The elder eventually talks down the young one, citing that he must also believe in others' ability to help, not just his own. Hearing this, JP is inspired and proceeds to the factory. JP finds Takuya fighting Snymon, and he uses a nearby crane to knock Snymon away. A wall is knocked in, and the human spirit of Thunder is revealed. This enables JP to spirit evolve into Beetlemon.
It is time.
Execute! Spirit evolution!
He takes on Snymon and after a brief struggle is able to emerge victorious. JP goes on to purify Snymon using his detector. Now freed, the Kukuomon go home and the Digidestined continue on their journey as the Minomon report the events to a mysterious figure. Still travelling alone, Koji climbs along the Karatsuki Numamon mountain. He hears several cries for help. Inside a cave, Koji finds several female Karatsuki Numamon caged up. He attempts to help them by breaking the lock, but before he can, a mysterious shadow appears and knocks him off the side of the mountain. The other kids are thrown out of a restaurant for not having an acceptable currency, so they decide to look for work. They find a sign claiming to want heroes, with free meals being the reward, so the kids quickly volunteer for the gig. Their employer turns out to be a group of male Karatsuki Numamon. The Karatsuki Numamon fill the Digidestined in on what's happened. A Digimon by the name of Grumblemon came to their mountain and demanded to know where the mountain's fractal code is. The Karatsuki Numamon didn't know, so Grumblemon took their females captive to use as barter in exchange for the location of the mountain's fractal code. The Digidestined promised to help Karatsuki Numamon, but in order to reach their home they must traverse up the vertical mountainside. When they arrive at the Karatsuki Numamon's home, they find Koji, who after falling from the mountain was discovered by the male Karatsuki Numamon. After finishing dinner, Koji informs them of where the females are hidden. JP lets slip that they are the wielders of the spirits which belong to the legendary warriors. Hearing this, the Karatsuki Numamon become anxious and start behaving suspiciously as they insist that the children get some sleep. Takuya commends Koji for helping out the Karatsuki Numamon. Koji gives him the cold shoulder. When the children wake up, they find themselves hanging from the side of a cliff. The Karatsuki Numamon reveal that Grumblemon is also a legendary warrior, so they assume the children are with Grumblemon. Grumblemon reveals himself as the mysterious figure from the last episode. Planning to trade the kids for the females, the Karatsuki Numamon attempt to bargain with Grumblemon. They realize they made a mistake as Grumblemon goes on to attack them. Koji manages to cut himself loose and spirit evolves to Lobomon. He and Grumblemon begin to fight while the others are released. Lobomon ends up clinging to the edge of a broken wall. Agunimon and Beetlmon begin to battle Grumblemon, while Kazimon and Kumamon help Lobomon. After Kazimon helps him up, Lobomon devises a plan for the three of them, where he will help Takuya and JP fight Grumblemon, whilst Kazimon and Kumamon free the females. Lobomon, Agunimon and Beetlmon are out of sync, so they struggle against Grumblemon's hide-and-seek attacks. After the captives are freed, Beetlmon gets an idea to drop debris from the mountaintop onto Grumblemon's head. This seems to apparently do the trick. Unfortunately, this also results in the mountain's fractal code being exposed, and Grumblemon reappears once again. Grumblemon's slide evolves back and forth between his human spirit and his beast spirit form, Gigasmon. He then steals the fractal code, which causes the mountain to dissolve, resulting in the children being separated as they freefall. From the destruction of the Karatsuki Numamon's mountain, the kids fall onto a floating island filled with toys. Unbeknown to them, the island is being piloted by Shadow Toy Agumon, who want to go to the human world so they can exact their revenge upon the humans. They begin to explore the island. Koji soon becomes annoyed when Tommy starts playing with the toys. Takuya, not wanting Koji to think that he is childish too, tells Tommy to stop playing with them, which upsets the little one. Koji insults Tommy, citing how much of a baby he is. This comment angers Takuya and only further upsets Tommy. Takuya and Koji begin to argue. Tommy puts his own feelings aside and manages to get them to stop fighting. They board a toy train to cover more ground. The three of them meet Monzaemon, who believes they have arrived to play with him, so he begins to chase after them. They manage to lose Monzaemon, but wind up finding themselves on a giant pirate ship seesaw. Tommy is exhausted, so Takuya offers him a piggyback ride. Koji gets into an argument with Takuya as he feels he babies him too much. Tommy breaks up the fight by saying he'll just walk. They are spotted by a Shadow Toy Agumon who orders Monzaemon to kidnap them, but when the innocent Digimon decides he would rather play, Shadow Toy Agumon corrupts his code and turns him into Waru Monzaemon. Koji continues to berate Takuya on his poor leadership. He highlights how they should be concerned about the rest of the legendary warriors, as evident by Grumblemon not all are good. Takuya asks Koji to drop the subject as he's worried it will scare Tommy, which only further aggravates Koji. Zoe, JP, Bulkamon and Nemon travel along a stream on a log, wondering how the others are doing. After another heated argument between Koji and Takuya, the group continues on until Waru Monzaemon kidnaps Tommy. When the boys attempt to chase after Waru Monzaemon, he uses his heartbreak attack, which causes them to become too depressed to continue, which allows the teddy bear to escape. Takuya begins to worry over Tommy. Takuya explains to Koji how losing Tommy reminded him of the time he lost his little brother at an amusement park, which left him feeling extremely guilty. Koji cites he cannot relate as he has no siblings. This moment between the two helps Koji better understand where Takuya is coming from in the way he treats Tommy. We see Tommy trapped in the high tower of the Shadow Toy Agumon's Lavender Castle. A friendly toy arrives to guide Takuya and Koji to the castle. They arrive outside the castle, but find that they must first cross a bridge. As they cross the bridge is retracted by the guards, causing the two to fall into the river. They're both saved by Pandamon, who explains that the Shadow Toy Agumon now serve Cherubimon, who promised to provide them a way to the real world so they can exact their revenge on the children whom stopped playing with them. Pandamon sends them on their way. Takuya and Koji are ambushed by the Shadow Toy Agumon, whom can merge together. They first form into a tank, and then subsequently into an Autobot. Agunimon and Lobomon work together to take them out, thus removing Cherubimon's influence over them. Takuya begins to worry about all the horrible things that must be happening to Tommy, so both rush to save him. Upon reaching the room he's being held in, they are shocked to see that he is having the time of his life, playing video games with Monzaemon, who has returned back to normal. Tommy was able to break Cherubimon's influence over Waru Monzaemon when he realized that all he wanted to do is play more than anything. The repentant Toy Agumon fly the Digidestined off the island. Zoe, JP, Nemon and Bulkamon land on a field of very tall flowers when a Sunamon darts past and startles them. A Togumon comes through the field to look for Sunamon. She spots the kids and after retrieving Sunamon invites them to the Digimon school. The group is at first reluctant, but once they are told there will be food, they agree to go. At school, the young in-training Digimon greet them. The kids watch on as Togumon takes the Digimon through an average day of school, whilst allowing the kids to take part in the lessons. They pick up on how the students ostracize Sunamon from any group activities. It reminds Zoe of her own ostracization due to her having grown up in Italy. JP unwittingly and unintentionally insults Tsunomon, which causes him to run off and fall into a river. Zoe tries to save him, but she falls in too. Tsunomon digivolves to Gabumon in order to save them both. He reveals that the reason the other Digimon don't want to play with him is because they are scared of his ability to digivolve. It begins to rain, which worries Tsunomon, as the school was once flooded in the past after a huge rainstorm. The kids spirit evolve and return to the school, but the students and Togemon are taking refuge on the school rooftop. The Digidestined work to protect the school. When Kapurimon falls into the water, Tsunomon takes strength from the fact that even JP, who is scared of thunder and lightning as a human, is fearlessly helping out as Beetomon, and so digivolves to save Kapurimon. When the rain clears, Gabumon finds himself accepted by the students. The class builds the Digidestined a boat for sailing across the plains. They meet up with Takuya, Koji and Tommy after they parachute out of Toy Agumon's plane. The Digidestined, having been reunited, enter the Forest Kingdom and decide to set up camp for the night in the TV forest. Zoe finds some meat apples and the kids split up into two groups where one group searches for more apples whilst the other looks for more firewood. They manage to build a fire and roast the meat apples. Takuya begins to wonder why, when all 5 children have their spirits, they were unable to defeat Grumblemon after he underwent Beast Evolution and became Gigasmon. Takuya asks Bulkamon to check his book for any information on Beast Spirits. With some help from Nemon, Bulkamon manages to find a hidden page on Beast Spirits. They learn that there are 2 forms for each spirit, human and beast, but they cannot find anything on how to actually find a beast spirit. The cloud passes over the moon, which further darkens the surrounding area. The tree trunks around them begins to glow and they find that there are TVs in the trunks, which allows them to see into the real world. Bulkamon explains that they are currently in the video forest, which provides a gateway to the real world. In one of the tree trunks, Tommy sees his mother. The moon shines again and images fade. Tommy begins to cry as he realizes how much he misses his mum. To cheer Tommy up, Takuya gives him a hot dog flavored meat apple. Zoe suggests JP perform a magic trick for the group. Tommy briefly leaves the group to get another meat apple from the fire. The ghost Digimon Bakumon appears and uses its nightmare syndrome on him. The rest of the kids go to sleep while JP and Takuya stay up and talk. Takuya says he misses his little brother Shinya and cites how Tommy reminds him of his brother. As Bakumon continues to watch them in the shadows, Takuya senses that something is wrong, so he and JP take a look around. Koji is unable to sleep as he wonders about the cryptic messages he's received from the voice within his detector, which stated that he must search for the spirit which awaits him, as the spirit will make everything clear to him. Tommy returns to the group in a trance of sorts, where he actively dreams about everyone, keeping him from seeing his mother. His spirit evolves into Kumamon and begins to attack the group. JP suggests that they should spirit evolve too in order to keep Tommy at bay, but the others disagree, leaving them no choice but to continue evading him. Koji and Takuya both notice something moving around the area. The Koji spirit evolves into Lobomon. JP becomes irritated with Koji for spirit evolving, but Zoe points out that Koji must have a good reason for it. Takuya then spots Bakumon again, so his spirit evolves into Agunimon. Bakumon attempts to use Nightmare Syndrome against Agunimon, but Takuya manages to shake off the nightmare. Knowing that Tommy must be going through the same thing, Agunimon tries to reason with him. He defeats Bakumon and purifies him, which breaks Tommy's nightmare as he returns to his human form without any memory of attacking the others. Everyone except Koji goes to sleep, but this time the purified Bakumon gives them good dreams. Koji's detector begins to beep. He is told that his beast spirit awaits him, so he wanders off to search for it. Bulkamon and Nemon decide to follow him. Takuya, Tommy, JP and Zoe rush around the campsite looking for the 3 of them until they find a note stating that the 3 of them have gone off alone. Angry at being left behind, the group follow them. As Koji attempts to lose Bulkamon and Nemon, they all fall down a drop-off and run into a young Gotsumon that is seeking a jewel to unlock a spirit. Bulkamon asks him if he knows how to get to the forest terminal, and Gotsumon admits that he does, but refuses to tell them anything before running off. Koji and the others chase after him, but as they catch up to Gotsumon, Gigasmon attacks the Gotsumon village. In order to defend the villagers, Koji's spirit evolves into Lobomon. Gigasmon splits the ground apart as he double hammer fists Lobomon unconscious. Gotsumon comes to his aid and notices that a jewel had been knocked loose in the battle. Instead of retrieving the jewel, Gotsumon prioritizes Koji's safety and takes him to his village so that he can recover. Gotsumon wants to return to the battlefield in order to fend off Gigasmon. As Koji tries to talk him out of it, the two begin to argue. Gotsumon leaves, determined to become a legendary warrior himself. The rest of the group is making their way toward the Gotsumon village when Gigasmon notices them and attacks. This draws the attention of both Gotsumon and Koji. The kids spirit evolve in order to fend off Gigasmon. Koji begins to make his way over to join them. The main group begin to battle, but Gigasmon proves too powerful and knocks the fractal code out of Kumamon. As Kazimon, Zoe pushes him out of the way and her spirit is stolen by Gigasmon. Lobomon joins the fight and manages to push Gigasmon back, which provides the others a much needed break. Meanwhile, Gotsumon has found the jewel and attempts to unlock the spirit by placing it in a statue. Koji is knocked into the opposite side of the statue. Just as Gigasmon prepares to finish Koji off, Gotsumon defends him and gives Koji the jewel. Koji quickly scales the statue and places the jewel in its third eye, which releases the beast spirit of light, enabling Koji to spirit evolve into Kendo Garurumon.
Beast Spirit! Me not afraid of Beast Spirit! I did it! And I won!
Koji loses control of his beast form, and the ensuing battle between he and Gigasmon results in the two falling off a cliff as Koji reverts back to his human form. Gotsumon manages to catch him. As he pulls him up, he says that by learning to ask for help, they were both able to be heroes. We witness Grumblemon create Golemon with what I can best describe as some sort of water infused with the dark energy of Cherubimon. The Digidestined are still mourning the loss of Zoe's spirit. JP promises to get it back for her, but Koji finds that impractical and decides that he would prefer they stay the course and press forward to the forest terminal. A fight breaks out and Zoe tries to calm the two by saying that going to the forest terminal is a better idea. Bulkmon interrupts and tells the children he knows what they should do. He takes them to the fortune teller village where they encounter several strange Digimon including Vardamon, whom tells JP that there's a girl in his life who thinks he is quite special. JP immediately believes this girl to be Zoe. Bulkmon leads them to Shamanmon. Shamanmon tells them that they will face an old foe with a new friend and that friend will become a foe. The group scoffs at him, but Shamanmon tells them that Takuya and Tommy will face the greatest trial. The ground begins to rumble as Grumblemon and Golemon attack the village. Takuya, JP and Tommy spirit evolve to fight back. When Koji attempts to use his beast spirit, Grumblemon uses his magic water to trap him, which keeps him from spirit evolving. The other three pick up the slack and fight Golemon, but their attacks are useless against him. They all focus their attacks together, which does manage to knock down Golemon. Grumblemon slide evolves to Gigasmon and quickly gains the upper hand. He goes on to steal the human spirit of ice off Tommy. Suddenly, a large Digimon bursts from Shamanmon's home and begins to attack Gigasmon. The Digimon proves to be very powerful and destroys Golemon whilst driving Gigasmon away, thus freeing Koji. The group decides that this Digimon is too dangerous, so they should leave. As they are about to leave, they hear it cry out for help. Recognizing the voice to be Shamanmon's, Agunimon is told by him that the beast spirit of fire had been in his home and went on to possess him. In order to save Shamanmon, Agunimon begins to fight him. Shamanmon manages to regain enough control to hold himself in place. This allows Agunimon to defeat and purify him. The beast spirit latches itself onto Agunimon, which causes him to slide evolve into Burning Greymon. Takuya is unable to control his beast form and attacks Beetlemon, which forces Koji to beast spirit evolve into Kendo Garurumon to keep him at bay. Bulkamon, Nemon, Zoe and Tommy are forced to stay on the sidelines as Kendo Garurumon and Beetlemon attempt to stop Takuya's rampage. This frustrates Tommy as he hates not being able to help his friends. Tommy resolves to finally do something and try to bring Takuya back to his senses by talking to him. Burning Greymon grabs hold of Tommy, who continues to talk to him, telling Takuya that real courage isn't fighting bullies in fear but standing up to them. His pleas get through to Takuya as he puts Tommy down and returns to his human form. Takuya breaks down in guilt for attacking his friends, whilst also questioning his abilities as a Digidestined. Once the group has recovered, they decide to look for Grumblemon in order to recover their spirits. They travel through a forest and come upon a maze of routes that ends in several X's and one O. The kids decide to traverse the maze. Takuya and Tommy end up in the O, and the others end up in the X's. Those in the X's are stuck in the mud. As Tommy and Takuya try to help them out, Grumblemon appears. Takuya threatens to spirit evolve into Burning Greymon, but Grumblemon points out that it's only a threat if he can control his beast form. As he's defenseless, Tommy climbs a tree while Takuya spirit evolves into Agunimon. Grumblemon slide evolves into Gigasmon. After a brief skirmish, Gigasmon snatches up Tommy. Agunimon begins to chase him into the treetops. Gigasmon knocks Agunimon to the ground, causing Takuya to return to his human form. Koji realizes that a human spirit cannot stand up to a beast spirit, so tells Takuya he must beast spirit evolve into Burning Greymon. Although he's initially afraid to do so, Zoe reminds him of what Tommy said to him earlier. He decides to beast spirit evolve and is able to rescue Tommy from Gigasmon.
Of that freak, then so can I! Execute! Beast Spirit Evolution!
While Tommy goes on to help the others, Takuya continues to fight. He slide evolves to Agunimon and leads Gigasmon out of the forest. No longer afraid of burning down the forest, Takuya slide evolves back to Burning Greymon and attacks Gigasmon, which knocks the fractal code out of him. He returns Tommy's spirit back to him and retrieves the beast spirit of Earth. He attempts to get Zoe's spirit back, but Grumblemon escapes and returns to his hideout. At the hideout, it is revealed that the other 4 legendary warriors are in fact working under Cherubimon. The Digidestined finally arrive at the forest terminal, but find that there is no one there except for D-Ramon and his restaurant called D-Rasoba. D-Ramon offers them free food, which they happily accept. After realizing how awful the food tastes, they leave. Their path is completely deserted and covered in fog, and the group soon start to feel lost. Their detectors begin to react, leading them to a castle that Saucermon is guarding. Once he realizes they are not enemies, Saucermon leads the children into the castle and shows them Seraphimon, one of the 3 celestial Digimon. Unfortunately, he is encased in crystal. Saucermon cites that the voice coming from their detectors belongs to Aphanimon, one of the 3 celestial Digimon, whom are in charge of governing the digital world. The detectors begin to glow, and the children point the light at Seraphimon, which releases him. The children demand answers from Seraphimon. Seraphimon recounts the legend of Lucemon and the 10 legendary warriors, a story which had previously been told to them by Bokomon, where he adds how 3 champions were chosen to withhold the peace within the digital world. Cherubimon turned against them after he had become corrupted through his lust for power, and he went on to attack Seraphimon. Saucermon and Seraphimon both know that once they join forces with Aphanimon, they will be able to defeat Cherubimon. Seraphimon asks the children to return home, but the corrupted legendary warriors Ranamon, Mercurymon, Arbamon, and Grumblemon attack them. All but Zoe spirit evolve, but find themselves outmatched. Seraphimon joins the battle to protect the kids. Mercurymon reflects Seraphimon's attack right back at him, which enables him to steal his fractal code, which causes Seraphimon to revert back into a Digi-Egg. Zoe quickly grabs hold of the Digi-Egg in order to keep it safe. Saucermon helps the kids escape down a secret tunnel, but when the other warriors follow them, he sacrifices himself to allow them to get away on one of the Trailmon. Upon escaping from Seraphimon's castle, Trailmon brings the children to an underground cavern. Bokomon takes Seraphimon's egg under his care in order to properly hatch it. Unsure of where they are, the children begin to look for a way out, but end up in a large icy cavern with a pool at its center. As the group begins to look for an exit, suddenly a Waymon emerges from the pool and begins to flail about uncontrollably. Koji and Takuya both spirit evolve and are successful in calming down Waymon. Zoe asks him what's wrong. Waymon explains how he was trapped in the cavern. Besides, after Grumblemon stole some fractal code, it caused he and part of the ocean to be sucked into the cavern. Grumblemon locates the kids and uses his magic to create a small army of Golemon. Arbomon, who is hidden, grapples Lobomon and Agunimon, which takes them out to fight. No longer able to stand on the sidelines, Tommy and JP spirit evolve. JP, having been accidentally injured by Waymon when he was thrashing around, is easily taken out of the fight. When Grumblemon moves in for a finishing blow, Waymon attacks, which incidentally releases the Beast Spirit of Thunder, which he had accidentally swallowed. JP Beast Spirit evolves into Metal Kabuterimon. He too, like Takuya and Koji, initially has a difficult time controlling his beast form. JP is eventually able to regain control, and with a single shot he destroys both Grumblemon and Golemon, thus returning Zoe's human spirit of wind back to her. Due to the damage from the battle, the cave begins to collapse, which allows water to rush in. Waymon takes the group into his mouth and they safely return to the ocean, where he ferries them to an island as a way to say thanks. After Mercurymon teases Ronomon for not yet having found her beast spirit, she contacts her fan club telling them to search for it. It turns out her fan club is made up of several Toucanmon, and they happen to be located on the same island that Waymon had dropped the Digidestined off on. All the children except Koji are excited about the idea that they're on a beach, as they are well overdue a break. Although Koji initially wants to keep moving forward with the mission, he eventually concedes as they tickle him into submission. Spotting the Toucan Paradise, they find it's being run by the Toucanmon and are given a free meal. The Toucanmon give them beach attire to rent for free. As the lads are in the ocean, they hear Zoe scream, so they barge into the girls' changing room. They are left with their mouths hanging wide open as they see Zoe, who's actually in the middle of getting changed. She lets them know that she spotted someone peeping on her. JP attempts to speak up in a stoic manner, citing he will find and reprimand the peeping Tom. The rest of the boys, including Bulkamon and Nemon, look at him, suspiciously believing he is the one trying to cop a look at her. Tommy comes to his defense, citing that they all have the same alibi, given that they were all in the water at the same time. As the kids all search for the peeper, they realize that their detectors are gone. Takuya and JP decide to get changed before they begin searching for their detectors, but they forget that Zoe is present right there watching them. The kids confront Toucanmon and demand their detectors back. Ronomon appears, and Zoe, being the only one with a detector, spirit evolves in order to protect the others. As they fight, Ronomon senses her beast spirit and finds it in a sunken ship. Ronomon beast spirit evolves into Calmaromon. The Toucanmon are put off by her beast form. As they leave, they cite how nice Kazimon looks, and JP adds further insult to injury as he highlights how bad Calmaromon smells. Calmaromon has the upper hand, but the kids manage to catch a lucky break after she loses control of herself upon using her Titanic Tempest attack. Calmaromon ends up uncontrollably flying off into the distance. The kids decide to chase the Toucanmon once they realize that Ronomon's former fan club still have their detectors. The group of Toucanmon are in complete disarray as they have become depressed that their beloved Ronomon has turned into such a hideous beast. They attempt to throw away the detectors but change their mind and decide to sell them for money to other fans of Ronomon. JP is sitting on his own but seems down in the dumps, so Zoe approaches him and asks if he's worried about his detector. JP cites his worry is that Zoe will become an ugly monster too once she finds her beast spirit. As Toucanmon fly to a nearby island, they are spotted by the children. Takuya and Zoe chase after them until they are stopped by several Gomamon. The Gomamon inform them that the water is dangerous due to the whirlpools surrounding the Goma island. They cite how they once lived there until Cherubimon began to disrupt the natural order of the digital world, hence the formation of the whirlpools. They go on to explain how they have been separated from their homes and friends ever since. Upon JP's suggestion, the group decide to find a flying Digimon who will take them to the island. Zoe is moved by how sad the Golemons seem, and so she convinces her friends to help them. They all build a raft and begin to approach the whirlpools, but their plans are halted when Ronamon appears. Zoe's spirit evolves to hold her off while the others look for a way past the whirlpools. Ronamon shoots down Kazimon, leading her to fall into a whirlpool. Just as she is beginning to lose hope, Kazimon realizes that she is able to breathe underwater. A clamshell opens up to reveal her beast spirit. She, beast spirit, evolves to Zephyrmon. Unlike Ranamon's beast form, Zephyrmon retains her feminine features, which makes Ranamon jealous and also leaves JP evidently very pleased. Unlike the others, who initially had a hard time controlling their beast forms, Zoe is in full control from the get-go. Ranamon slide evolves to Kalmaramon and manages to gain the upper hand. Kalmaramon is distracted by the boys, whom call out how ugly she is. This provides Zephyrmon an opening to subdue her. Kalmaramon again attempts to use her Titanic Tempest attack, and just like earlier, she loses control and splits. With Zoe's beast spirit now retrieved, the whirlpools disappear. The group is able to make their way to the Golma Island. The Golmamon are ecstatic to be reunited with their friends. Unfortunately, the kids learn that the Toucanmon have already left for the Autumn Leaf Fair, which is a trader's market on another continent. The Digidestined head towards the Autumn Leaf Fair on their raft. They reach an Arctic area, but their speeding raft flies off the water and onto the snow, ultimately leading the group to the fair. In order to find a lead on the whereabouts of the Toucanmon, they decide to split up to cover more ground. Tommy finds a pawn shop which is run by a Datamon. Datamon comes across quite friendly and they play a video game together. He learns that Datamon has their detectors. He confirms he got them via trade with the Toucanmon. Tommy tries to convince Datamon to hand them over. Unimpressed and skeptical, Datamon ignores Tommy. He begins to tinker with Tommy's Digivice, which makes Tommy very anxious. Arbumon calls and says he will make his way to the store in order to trade for the detectors. It appears that Datamon broke Tommy's detector. As he's about to tinker with the others' detectors next, Tommy breaks down in tears, begging that he not damage his friend's detectors too. It's evident Datamon has a soft spot for Tommy, as he agrees to give him an hour to find something to trade for the devices. Tommy and Koji continue to search, and they stumble upon JP and Zoe, whom are seen eating away instead of looking for the detectors. It is revealed that the Toucanmon, having been bullied by Arbumon, make their way back to the Autumn Leaf Fair where Tommy finds them. They run on to thin ice and it breaks, causing all the Toucanmon to fall into the ice-cold water. Tommy initially just takes the camera, which they traded for the detectors, but ultimately is unable to leave the Toucanmon in their current predicament. He saves them all, but instead of repaying him for his kindness, they simply take the camera and leave. Takuya and Koji find Tommy. Tommy breaks down in Takuya's arms as he feels he has failed them. Arbumon catches up with the Toucanmon and takes them to Datamon's store, demanding a trade back. Upon inspecting the camera, Datamon sees a recording which shows Tommy saving the Toucanmon. Datamon is clearly moved by this, so makes up an excuse to turn down the trade. Enraged, Arbumon slide evolves into Petaldramon and destroys Datamon's store. Koji, Takuya and Tommy notice the commotion and hurry to help. While Takuya and Koji grab makeshift weapons to fight Petaldramon, Tommy apologizes to Datamon for not having anything to trade with. Datamon, impressed by Tommy's kindness and generosity, passes down some wisdom to him by stating that truth is the best treasure. Datamon returns Tommy's detector to him. He makes Tommy promise not to tell anyone that he's soft-hearted. He also cites that he's added something to Tommy's detector. That something is none other than Tommy's Beast Spirit, which was the prize from the game that Tommy won earlier. Tommy Beast Spirit evolves into Korikakumon. He protects Takuya and Koji whilst Datamon is shocked at the fact that a human is able to transform into a Digimon. Although he is able to fight well against Petaldramon, the others soon realize he's unable to control his beast spirit. Tommy ends up being trapped by Petaldramon's attack. Datamon gives Takuya and Koji their detectors. They spirit evolve into Agunimon and Lobomon. The two of them free Korukakumon, who goes on to defeat Petaldramon by sending him soaring into the distance. After reuniting with the others, they are contacted by Ophanimon via their detectors. She asks them one final time if they are willing to continue the journey despite the dangers ahead. The kids resolve to see their mission through, so she directs them to go to the Rose Morning Star. Zoe shows the others the train tickets she won from taking on the 1-hour eating contest which Takuya and Koji saw her in the middle of earlier, so the kids are able to catch a ride on a Trailmon. As they appear to be getting closer to the Rose Morning Star, they all begin to feel on edge. Tommy, Zoe and Koji gaze at their beast spirits in admiration via their detectors. Unbeknownst to them, it's actually the day of the Great Trailmon race, so they are forced to get off at an unfamiliar town. They come across the Trailmon racetrack and meet all the participants. When the kids realize the prize for winning are cheeseburgers, they sign up to participate too. And Andromon arrives to initiate the race. JP spirit evolves after hearing one of the participants, a shadow Wergarurumon, talk down to him. JP is forced to quit when a Raremon laying on the tracks blocks his path. On the other hand, Takuya manages to take the lead with Shadow Wergarurumon right on his heel. Dogimon, who has teamed up with Shadow Wergarurumon, throws an explosive at the bridge in order to prevent the others from progressing. Koji and his Trailmon manage to jump the gap. Zoe and Tommy are forced to spirit evolve. Kumamon creates a track of ice for his Trailmon to use. Kazimon's Trailmon runs out of track, so it falls towards the stream of water below. Kazimon saves it, but she is eliminated from the race. Takuya and his Trailmon are currently in the lead, but are nudged by Shadow Wergarurumon's Trailmon. This causes Takuya to fall off. Kumamon comes in clutch and catches Takuya. Takuya's spirit evolves and gets into a fight with Shadow Wergarurumon and Dogimon. Koji sees Takuya is outnumbered, so he spirit evolves to help him. Unfortunately, this leaves Koji's Trailmon Franken unguarded. Dogimon begins to eat Franken's brakes. Lobomon attempts to stop Franken from falling, but they both end up falling off the cliff. Kumamon grabs Franken to keep him from falling, as Lobomon's slide evolves into Kendogururumon and manages to cling on to a canyon wall. Tommy's Trailmon called Angler helps support the weight of Franken, but he slides off the cliff too. Kendogururumon breaks the fall of both Trailmon and Kumamon. However, they are all eliminated from the race. Takuya and Shadow Wergarurumon enter the tunnel within the mountain. Dogimon continues to play dirty by throwing a bomb intended to take out Takuya's Trailmon called Worm. The bomb knocks the two off the tracks. Worm begins to leak gasoline, which is ignited by some nearby Demi-Meramon. Takuya slide evolves to Burning Greymon. He and Worm manage to make it out the tunnel just as it explodes. Burning Greymon uses his wildfire tsunami attack against Shadow Wergarurumon. He manages to knock their foe's Trailmon called Buffalo out of the race, which makes Takuya and Worm the winners. They learn that the prize is not a cheeseburger but in fact a trip to the Hamburger Digimon village. Petaldramon begins to crave burgers when the digital world's 3 moons align, so he raids the Hamburger village. Impressed by the resident chef Bergamon's cooking ability, Petaldramon kidnaps him and takes him away from his family. Petaldramon tells them that he will only release the father Bergamon if someone can make a better burger, giving them until the next day to find someone better. The following morning, the Digidestined arrive at the village. When they learn of Bergamon's predicament, they all agree to help. Tommy, through a series of accidents, manages to invent a delicious new flavor. Bulkamon and Nemon test all the burgers. They find Zoe and JP's burgers to be good, but Koji and Takuya's burgers are terrible. Koji and Takuya begin to argue over whose burger is better, while the others sit outside waiting to try the burgers made by Tommy. The Camelimon arrive on orders from Petaldramon. They taste Tommy's burgers and acknowledge they are worthy to present to their master. Rather than freeing Bergamon, they instead kidnap JP, Zoe and Tommy. JP suggests they spirit evolve to take the Camelimon out. Zoe advises they wait it out so that they can find out Bergamon's location. The young Torikara Ballmon, whom are Bergamon's children, follow them to help, but end up being captured too. While all this is going on, the oblivious Takuya and Koji, who are in the heat of competition, continue to cook burgers as they try to one-up each other. Father Bergamon is impressed by Tommy's burger making skills. The Camellimon show them that they have captured Father Bergamon's kids. JP, Zoe and Tommy spirit evolve in order to protect them. Kumamon asks the Torikara Ballmon to take to the sky in order to help them locate the Camellimon who have the ability to camouflage themselves. After defeating the Camellimon, Kumamon purifies them, which leads them to de-digivolve back into harmless Armadillomon. Petaldramon soon arrives for his burgers. The kids are shocked to see that it was he who had captured Bergamon. They waste no time in slide evolving to their beast forms. Petaldramon makes it clear that he has zero interest in fighting, as all he wants is his burgers. When Bergamon gives him a taste of Tommy's burger, Petaldramon rushes into the building's kitchen as he goes on to devour all the burgers inside. He then falls asleep inside the building. Metal Carbuterimon brings the building down on the sleeping Petaldramon, which allows them all to flee. They all return to Hamburger Village, with Father Bergamon proudly naming the new burger recipe after Tommy. Meanwhile, Koji and Takuya continue to argue over whose burger is better. At the end of the episode, Petaldramon wakes up but he's too tired to get up, so falls back asleep. At their hidden lair, Arbomon, Mercurymon and Ranamon meet with Cherubimon to inform him that Grumblemon has been destroyed. They each offer their master the fractal code that they have collected so far. Cherubimon notices that Mercurymon has not handed over Seraphimon's fractal data. He makes it clear that he is aware that Mercurymon has the code, but allows him to keep it for the time being. Cherubimon also adds that he is aware the humans are in the digital world. Arbomon swears to his master that he will take care of them. Bulkmon lets the kids know that they have reached the Dark Gate and what lies ahead of them is the continent of darkness. He stresses to the children that they should find an alternative route to the Morning Star. Takuya motivates the rest of the kids to press forward. Having gained confidence in their individual and collective strength, the rest of the kids agree. They enter the continent of darkness and the eerie environment quickly has everyone on edge. Tommy sees something glowing in the distance, so they walk towards it. Mercurymon is frustrated that Cherubimon knew all along that he had Seraphimon's data. Duskmon, who has been lurking in the shadows for a few episodes by this point, watches Mercurymon. Mercurymon, knowing he's being watched, calls out Duskmon. He quickly becomes frustrated by Duskmon's questioning of his allegiance. Mercurymon calls Duskmon a coward for having never set foot on the battlefield. Duskmon walks away as he begins to contemplate taking out the children himself. The Digidestined find their voices being echoed by something. When Koji throws his moss at the source, they discover a group of Pipismon. Bulkamon's shocked to find such peaceful and gentle creatures living in the Dark Continent. Takuya suggests to Bulkamon that he write down what he learns about the continent, and after some encouragement, Bulkamon decides not only to write about the continent of darkness, but also the legendary warriors too. Arbomon appears, and after destroying the Pipismon, Slide evolves into Petaldramon. The children Beast Spirit evolve to fight Petaldramon, but after consuming a tree, he balloons in size. The kids now appear to be outmatched, so they decide to attack together. Zoe and Takuya combine their attack and manage to knock the fractal code out of him. Koji Slide evolves to Lobomon and scans the beast spirit of wood. Duskmon then appears and destroys Arbomon, citing he is useless now without his beast spirit. Duskmon begins to fight the Digidestined. Their attacks have no effect, and he proves far more skilled a fighter than they are. By this point, Burning Greymon has had enough of Duskmon's continuous insults and proceeds to engulf him in a raging flame. Takuya thinks he did the job, but Lobomon knows this is not the case, as he cites all of their beast forms combined fail to lay a scratch on Duskmon. Lobomon forces everyone to run away. Takuya is adamant that Duskmon has been defeated. He continues to vent his frustration towards Koji for forcing them all to leave the battlefield. Koji calls out Takuya for his selfishness in lunging at Duskmon the way he did, without a care in the world for the safety of the others or himself. As they continue to bicker, Bulkamon breaks them up by citing they are simply just hungry, so he suggests they find some food. Zoe voices her concern over the two. JP cites it's completely normal for the two of them to argue, and how it was inevitable to happen at some point given how much time they all spend together. Zoe acknowledges how wise JP is, but he ruins this moment by trying to bring up how much he loves her, which Zoe completely shuts down. Tommy cites his concern about their safety, but Takuya nonchalantly voices how next time they'll be able to take down Duskmon for sure. As they're setting up camp, Takuya and Tommy come up with a plan to defeat Duskmon. They share their plan with the others. They will have Agumon face off against Duskmon whilst the rest of them stay hidden until the last minute and use the element of surprise to attack Duskmon from behind in their beast forms. Hearing how silly the plan is, Koji takes Takuya aside to talk. Koji asks Takuya if he knows why he came to the digital world in the first place. When Takuya says it's to save the world, Koji picks up on the hesitancy in his voice, so speaks his mind. He tells Takuya that he doesn't think he knows what that truly means. Koji highlights how he realized when their swords clashed, Duskmon was not even using half his full strength. Takuya still believes that if they work together they can take him. Koji voices to Takuya that he knows he doesn't care if he gets hurt, but asks Takuya to promise none of the others will get hurt due to his reckless actions. Duskmon locates the Digidestined, so they put their plan in motion. The plan completely fails as Duskmon is able to absorb all their attacks. Duskmon turns to attack Agumon, but Kendo Garurumon jumps in the way to protect him, which leaves Koji seriously injured. Takuya screams Koji's name as he holds his unconscious friend in his arms. Upon hearing Koji's name, Duskmon becomes confused and begins to back away. Duskmon begins to grimace in pain, going on to engulf the area in darkness. When the darkness clears, Takuya finds himself alone at the Dark Terminal, where he meets a Dark Trailmon who offers to take him home should he wish to leave. Demoralized and depressed for being the reason Koji was hurt, Takuya accepts Dark Trailmon's offer. The Dark Trailmon takes Takuya to the same terminal in the real world which he had left from in the first episode. En route, he suddenly evolves into Flamemon. When he arrives in the human world as Flamemon, he sees the hazy images of Duskmon, so he flees above ground. He eventually makes his way home and looks into his house via the kitchen window. Takuya sees himself sitting at the table where we first met him and realizes that he had returned to the day that he left. He regrets leaving that day, so decides to stop himself from getting on the train. Flamemon continues to be hounded by Duskmon's spectral image. He continues to press forward towards the train station where he spots a kid who appears to look like Koji. When the elevator in the train terminal locks him out, the boy takes the stairs but stumbles and falls. Once Takuya gets on the elevator, Flamemon attempts to prevent his past self from embarking on the journey, but reconsiders when he remembers Koji's admonition to consider his effects on others. Realizing that deserting the fight would mean leaving his friends in danger, he gains the courage to defeat the spectral Duskmon that had been haunting him the entire time. Flamemon asks Dark Trailmon to return him to the digital world. His spirit evolves into Agumon as he re-enters the digital world. Agumon returns to the battle site but is unable to find anyone. He begins to search for his friends. JP, Zoe and Tommy are being held by Mercurymon and Ranamon at the old castle. Several Datamon attempt to release the spirits within their detectors. Ranamon becomes impatient and decides to force the location of Takuya and Koji out of them by tickling Tommy and Zoe. Agumon starts to feel more connected with the digital world and he recounts his journey so far. He realizes how disconnected he was from the world around him. Emon and Bulkamon are being heckled by Sepicmon, who is trying to force them to dance after they refuse to. Sepicmon playfully launches his boomerang towards the two. Agumon arrives and protects them. Sepicmon decides he wants nothing more than to make friends. Agumon agrees to be his friend but asks Sepicmon to lend his strength to them. Sepicmon provides them his boomerang which will guide them to the other Digidestined. When Ranamon's tickle plan fails, she resorts to torturing JP. Koji, who has managed to track down his friends, spirit evolves to Lobomon in order to intervene. As he is still injured, he finds himself quickly overwhelmed. Agumon finally manages to locate the others. Seeing how dire the situation is, he realizes he must think through how to approach the battle this time in order to prevent his friends from being hurt. Now in tune with the digital world, his sense of smell and awareness of his surroundings have magnified. He senses a storm coming and plans to use it to his advantage. Takuya now fully submits his will to the mission, thus truly becoming one with Agumon. He launches into battle and attacks. Mercurymon acknowledges that Takuya has become stronger than before. After being freed, Koji gives the other kids their detectors back. They all collectively spirit evolve. Ranamon slide evolves into Kalmaramon, but the kids manage to gain the upper hand with Mercurymon highlighting how they are using the elements to boost their power. Bulkamon, who's watching on proudly, comments on how Takuya has matured. The two enemies are forced to retreat. Takuya apologizes to everyone, and they all acknowledge how much Takuya has grown up. As Mercurymon plots a plan to defeat the kids, Duskmon continues to ponder on why Koji's name is affecting him so much. He wonders what Koji's connection to him is. The group resume their course towards the Rose Morning Star. En route, they are drawn into a bizarre and seemingly alive structure. Volcamon and Nemon are left behind. The Digidestined find themselves in a strange tunnel. As they explore, JP sees that at the tunnel's end is an eye. A hand grows out the wall and pushes JP through the eye, in which he ends up in a volcanic wasteland of the Earth area. There he encounters Volcamon, who begins to taunt him, saying that he has no friends. Volcamon laments how he chooses not to have friends. He cites how the difference between the two of them is that he enjoys not having friends. Doubt begins to creep into JP's mind, making him question whether the others really do consider him their friend. JP snaps himself out of it and goes on to Spirit Evolve into Beetlmon. He manages to defeat Volcamon. As he purifies him, Volcamon shares his dying words, citing that JP's friends do not care about him. These words cut deep and begin to make JP doubt his friendship with the others. A shadow appears and begins to talk. The voice reveals itself as JP's shadow. JP begins to recount his past, where he would spend his days in school trying to make friends. He did so by offering chocolates and doing magic tricks. We get a look inside the real JP. He was shunned at every corner in his attempt to make friends. Multiple illusions of Koji, Takuya, Zoe and Tommy begin to taunt him mercilessly. Beetlmon and his shadow begin to fight. JP is severely outmatched and reverts back to his human form. The real Zoe, Takuya, Koji and Tommy stumble through the eye portal and begin to support JP in his battle. When the shadow says it will destroy his friends, JP becomes angry and Beast Spirit evolves into Metal Kabuterimon. He realizes that the shadow is a manifestation of his old self, who was riddled by doubt, insecurity and loneliness. JP fires his electron cannon at close range, taking out his shadow but injures himself in the process. The rest of the group run over to him to make sure he's okay. JP cites they are all the best friends he's ever had. He adds that he considers them now family. Their reunion is cut short as several hands appear and pushes everyone through various portals. We hear Mercurymon's menacing laugh in the background. Tommy finds himself in the volcanic flame area. As he begins to search for his friends, he recalls a memory of his brother Yutaka. Yutaka once berated Tommy over his dependency issues. Tommy reiterates to himself he is no longer that same boy, as he is now one of the legendary warriors. Tommy is attacked by a three-faced Digimon who begins to chase after him. Nemon highlights to Volcamon that he feels that they are being watched. They look up to see Sukakumon, one of the legendary beast spirits who also happens to be Mercurymon's beast form. One of Sukakumon's spheres shows Tommy being chased by a three-faced Digimon. Tommy is unable to find a window to Spirit Evolve. Just as it seems his luck is about to run out, he bumps into Asuromon. Asuromon befriends Tommy and offers his aid in promising to help Tommy find the others. Meanwhile, Koji finds himself in the wind area. As he explores, he realizes he's being followed by something. Koji encounters Karatanmon, who begins to mock him by saying he is unfit to be a legendary warrior of light. Karatanmon demands he hands over his spirits. Koji Spirit evolves and the two commence battle. Tommy stops to take a rest. He recalls another memory where this time he was on a family outing and needed to rest up. Yutaka tries to explain to his little brother how a day will arrive where he must fend for himself. Tommy fails to understand what his big brother is trying to say. He thinks his brother is jealous because their parents love him more. As Tommy ponders on that memory, Asuromon returns and asks what's wrong. Tommy explains how his brother can be mean, but he's starting to understand where he was coming from. Asuromon suddenly gives off some major Freddy Krueger vibes when he cites Yutaka would be better off dead. Tommy is taken aback by this, but Asuromon simply laughs it off as a joke. As Asuromon takes Tommy up a hot mountain slow, Tommy asks to stop to take a break. Asuromon gets upset and begins to goad him by saying that he has done Tommy favors. Tommy refuses to believe friendship is based on keeping scores, as he recounts his earlier memory of Yutaka's lesson that friendship is based on a give and take, rather than a one-side-take-all. Asuromon reveals himself to be the three-headed Digimon that chased Tommy earlier. Tommy draws strength from his brother's message and Spirit evolves. He finally understands Yutaka's lesson. Tommy slide evolves to his beast form and goes on to defeat Asuromon. Tommy is then transported outside of the sphere to where Nemon and Volcamon are. Karatanmon continues its attempts at psychological warfare with Koji. When it pokes at Koji's relationship with his stepmother, it angers Koji enough to where he slide evolves into his beast form and swiftly defeats Karatanmon. A dimension darkens around him, and another eye portal opens for him, teleporting him to another area. Zoe is trapped in Sakakumon's water area. She cites to herself how she always ends up alone. She has a flashback where we learn she was bullied and alienated by her peers. She comes across some caged honeybeemon and goes on to free them, unaware of the fact that some of them are fans of Ranamon. It turns out the honeybeemon are a useless group whose traps backfire on them. Zoe arrives every time to save them, not knowing that they were actually trying to trap her. Due to the level of kindness she continuously showed them, they grow fond of her and give her nourishment. This upsets Ranamon, who's been watching from afar the entire time. Ranamon approaches one of the honeybeemon with a poisoned apple. She forces it to give the apple to Zoe. The honeybeemon reluctantly gives Zoe the apple. Upon biting the apple, she immediately becomes feverish. Zoe is reminded of her past, where the girl she helped in her earlier flashback took her back to her other friends. Unfortunately, Zoe is treated callously by them as they tell her to return back to Italy. Zoe feels betrayed when the girl she helped agrees with the others that she should leave. Zoe reacts by calling the girl a liar, as she thought she genuinely wanted to be her friend. Her outburst scares the girl, who runs away. JP is reunited with Tommy, Nemon and Bulkamon. Via one of Sakakumon's spheres, they see a vulnerable Zoe with Ranamon. Zoe reflects on that ill-fated day, realizing the way she lashed out was not right. She begins to feel guilty, citing to herself that she will strive to become a better person. Becoming frustrated with her, Ranamon throws a bouquet of flowers at Zoe's face. Zoe's spirit evolves into Kazimon. Ranamon tries to mess with Zoe's head. She cites how the honeybeemon are loyal to her, and contrary to what Zoe may think, they don't actually care about her. Ranamon coaxes the honeybeemon to cheer for her. She threatens to kick them out of her fan club if they do not. Zoe, having overcome her past trauma, is able to turn the tide of the battle by slide evolving into Zephyrmon. Zoe proceeds to scan Ranamon's fractal code. The eye portal opens, which enables Zoe to escape along with the honeybeemon. She is then reunited with Tommy, Bulkamon, Nemon and JP. When they see a silhouette of Koji in one of Sakakumon's spheres, they spirit evolve and attempt to break in to help him. They are all knocked back to the ground, which causes them to revert back to their human form. Seconds later, Duskmon forces himself into the sphere, holding Koji. JP becomes worried as Takuya and Koji have no idea that Duskmon has arrived. Zoe is able to make contact with Takuya via her detector. She warns him that Duskmon has entered Sakakumon and appears to be after Koji. Koji stumbles into the darkness area and is immediately attacked by Duskmon. Duskmon has become determined to uncover their connection and uses his abilities to read Koji's mind. Koji remembers the day he left for the digital world. We see Koji at a flower shop where he is shopping around to buy some flowers for his mom. The friendly shopkeeper asks how long his parents have been married for. He says they've been married for 3 years, which makes the shopkeeper wonder why his parents have been married for such a short time given that he appears to be 10 or 12. Before he can answer, he receives a message from a Farnimon asking if he's ready to play a game which will determine the future. Just as Takuya did, Koji accepts the invite, and we see him board the Shibuya train. Duskmon is overcome by human emotion, and we see a boy who looks just like Koji calling out to him as the door closes. This is the same boy Takuya saw at the station when he had returned to the real world earlier. We find out that Koji's mother passed away and his father since remarried. His father asks that he try to accept his new stepmother, if not for his own sake, then for his father's sake at least. This was the reason Koji was at the flower shop, as he was intending to provide her a bouquet of flowers as an olive branch. Duskmon continues to be pained by Koji's memories, so he releases Koji. Cherubimon materializes and reminds Duskmon that as a warrior of darkness, he cannot afford to show mercy, as it is his destiny to cover the world in darkness. Koji tries to talk some sense into Duskmon, but has no choice but to spirit evolve into Lobomon. The other kids via Sakakumon's spheres watch on as Lobomon takes on Duskmon. Agumon is forced to take on Ice Leomon, who blocks his path. Bulkamon highlights to the others how Seraphimon's egg has grown restless, which may be a signal that it is about to hatch. As is tradition for the Leomon breed of Digimon, Ice Leomon is defeated and purified by Takuya, but on the plus side he's been purified this time and not murdered in cold blood. Before he leaves Sukakumon's body, Agumon recalls when Tommy advised him that upon them leaving Sukakumon's sphere, they were unable to re-enter. So instead, Agumon decides to make his way to the dimension which Koji is being held in. Koji slide evolves into Kendogururumon, but his beast spirit is no match for Duskmon, who defeats him with a single strike, causing him to revert back to his human form. Duskmon steps forward and asks Koji if he has any last words. Koji breaks down in remorse, regretting how cold he has been towards his stepmother. He begins to envision a reality where he was able to give his stepmother the flowers and let her know that he accepts her by addressing her as Mum. He voices how sorry he is as Duskmon prepares to finish him off. On the outside, Seraphimon's egg begins to levitate and shoots out a beam of light which hits Koji. This enables Koji to combine both his human and beast spirits via fusion evolution, which enables Koji to evolve into Beowulfmon.
Fusion Evolution!
Duskmon, having witnessed and endured the pain of Koji's memories, asks why he continues to fight. Duskmon fails to realize that Koji's motivation to see through his mission is driven by a desire to want to make things right with his stepmother upon his return to the human world. Beowulfmon and Duskmon begin to fight. Both are evenly matched, but when their blades collide, they get a glimpse at each other's human form. Koji is shocked as Duskmon's human form looks just like him. Suddenly, an eye portal opens and the two of them are both thrown out. Takuya arrives but is too late. Agumon finds himself in the steel area where he encounters Mercurymon. Mercurymon taunts him as he calls Takuya weak. On the outside, Zoe worries for Takuya's safety. Mercurymon laments how he's the more experienced fighter and demonstrates this by slipping through the different mirrors placed around the dimension. Agumon as a result is unable to land a hit. Mercurymon decides to stop toying with Takuya. He has Takuya follow him to the next dimension, called the light area. Takuya enters and finds he is now inside a cathedral. Mercurymon summons Seraphimon's fractal code, which he has chained up on display. On the outside, the kids are also able to see what's going on. Takuya demands that Seraphimon be released. Mercurymon instead assimilates the fractal code, which enables him to evolve into Shadow Seraphimon. Shadow Seraphimon begins to batter Agumon, as the rest of the kids are forced to helplessly watch on. Zoe and Tommy question why Seraphimon is hurting Takuya. Bulkamon clarifies that the being attacking Takuya is in fact Mercurymon. Refusing to back down, Agumon slide evolves to Burning Greymon. But even with the added power, he's unable to lay a finger on Shadow Seraphimon. Shadow Seraphimon goes on to defeat him with a single strike, which causes Takuya to revert back to his human form. Bulkamon and the others realize the only way for Takuya to survive is to fusion evolve just as Koji did. Mercurymon presents a coffin to place Takuya inside. Seeing him down and out, the rest of the kids become desperate to help Takuya. They spirit evolve in an attempt to break into the sphere which Takuya is being held in. Things take a dark turn as we witness Shadow Seraphimon lift Takuya from his head and begin to crush his skull. Takuya breaks down, crying from the sheer pain he's in. Bulkamon pleads with Seraphimon's egg to help him. The egg begins to glow and shoots out a beam of light just as it did for Koji. Upon making contact with Takuya, he is able to fusion evolve into Oldermon.
Seriously? Oh yeah? Well then tell me something! Do I scare you now? Execute now! Fusion Evolution!
Shadow Seraphimon's attacks have no effect on Alderman. Alderman goes on to swiftly defeat him, thus allowing Seraphimon's data to return to the egg. Mercurymon retreats to the steel area but is unable to evade Alderman, who has managed to follow him. Alderman uses his Solar Wind Destroyer attack to destroy all the mirrors in the area. He finishes Mercurymon off by blasting a hole through his abdomen via a single punch. After purifying Mercurymon, Alderman makes his way to the others. He witnesses some commotion going on below, as he sees Bulkamon grimacing in pain as the egg continues to move around whilst attached to him. From the egg hatches Patamon. Bulkamon says he is its mama, which funnily enough, the oblivious newly born Patamon actually believes. Zoe, Tommy, JP and Takuya along with Bulkamon, Nemon and the newly hatched Patamon all celebrate Mercurymon's defeat. Takuya begins to worry about Koji, so the group decide to go look for him. Their plans come to a halt when Sukakumon is revealed to be very much alive. Not only that, but he's also copied all the attacks that the Digidestined used whilst trapped inside of his spheres. Takuya fusion evolves to Alderman, whilst the others too spirit evolve. Sukakumon is able to return their attacks at double the power. Not even Alderman can hold his own anymore. As Sukakumon launches Alderman's own attack towards the others, Alderman shields them, which results in him being put out of commission. Zoe, Tommy and JP all slide evolve to their beast forms. They decide to launch a collective attack, suspecting that Sukakumon will not be able to deflect all the attacks at once. Their plans fail, when Sukakumon appears to absorb their attacks and fires them back in kind. JP suggests falling back. Realizing the others have all lost faith, Takuya agrees to retreat. Zoe, JP and Tommy slide evolve back to their human spirit forms, but before they can retreat, Sukakumon surrounds the kids. Takuya finds an opening so the kids make a run for it. They are chased into a cave and follow a narrow tunnel until they reach a cavern. Once there, Sukakumon stops glowing, which engulfs the children in darkness. They all begin to recall traumatic memories of their past, where they had felt such fear before. Terrified as Sukakumon continues to taunt them, Tommy, JP and Zoe begin to launch their attacks at the surrounding area but end up hurting one another instead. As Alderman tries to talk sense into them, Beetlemon lashes out, citing that just because Takuya can fusion evolve doesn't mean he can give him orders. Tommy also acts unlike himself as he backs JP. Sukakumon enjoys the bickering. He highlights how the doubt which has crept into them from fear is causing them to lash out at one another. Takuya steps up as a leader and demands the others close their eyes. He cites they must trust in the abilities of their Digimon spirits inside them. He tells them that they must learn to trust and rely on the spirits' senses to help guide them, as they are not alone. Using their heightened senses, they manage to locate Sukakumon. With their confidence restored, they attack Sukakumon all at once. Alderman makes it clear that Sukakumon will never be able to take their spirits from them. Alderman flips the script on him, citing that he is now the one who is afraid. Takuya realizes that Sukakumon has never attacked them from the center orb. This leads him to believe that it must be where Sukakumon is most vulnerable. While the others distract Sukakumon, Alderman is able to defeat him as he attacks the center orb. Alderman goes on to purify Sukakumon. The kids are ecstatic for not only having finally defeated Mercurymon, but also for conquering their fears. Outside the cavern, the group resume their search for Koji. Cherubimon, seeing that his best warrior was defeated, decides to dissolve the seal. Beowulfmon continues to chase after Duskmon and manages to enter into one of his hideouts. Duskmon tells Koji that his presence causes him great pain. Koji asks if that's why he continues to hide in the shadows. In response, Duskmon says that it is their destiny to fight, as they are beings of darkness and light. The two then engage in battle. Meanwhile, the rest of the group have no idea where to start in their search for Koji. Patamon picks a random direction and they all begin to walk. We pan back to the battle, in which this time the two are evenly matched. Patamon senses Koji, so begins to fly towards his direction, and the group follows in tow. Duskmon and Beowulfmon continue to fight, as Cherubimon watches from the shadows. Cherubimon notices that the other Digidestined are drawing near. His presence is sensed by Patamon, and the group is trapped by Cherubimon. Duskmon manages to gain the upper hand and knocks Beowulfmon down. As he prepares to finish Koji off, he gets another glimpse of Koji's human form, which leads him to hesitate. Taking advantage of this, Beowulfmon knocks Duskmon back and prepares to attack with his cleansing light. Before he can, Cherubimon interferes by attacking Beowulfmon. Cherubimon knocks Beowulfmon unconscious and takes Duskmon away. Cherubimon claims that he will not allow his own creation to be defeated. Takuya and the others evolve in order to break out, but they are unable to make a dent in the wall. Patamon begins to dig a tunnel to get them out, so the others lend Patamon a hand. To ensure that Duskmon does not escape his control, Cherubimon reminds Duskmon of the day he came to the digital world. Duskmon remembers how he was once a boy called Koichi. This is the same boy we saw chasing after Koji at the train station. He recalls the feeling of being lost and abandoned. The anger and pain he felt is what drew Cherubimon to him. Seeing his potential, Cherubimon gave him the human spirit of darkness. Because Koichi still had his human heart, he was troubled by his memories of Koji. Koichi begins to hallucinate, where we see him call out to a man whom he refers to as father. This man is none other than Koji's dad. Cherubimon releases Koichi's beast spirit. Upon Slide evolving into his beast form Velgamon, Koichi forgets what little memory he has of Koji. The battle between the warrior of light and darkness resumes. Spotting the massive beast from a distance, Takuya and the others make their way to help their friend. Beowulfmon's attacks are easily deflected by Velgamon. Velgamon attempts to use his Dark Obliteration attack on Beowulfmon. Koji manages to dodge it at the last second, but despite this, Koji still takes damage and reverts back to his human form. Velgamon swoops in to finish him off. Ophanimon intervenes via Koji's detector. She begins to remind Koichi of his life in the human world and reveals that Koji is his twin brother. Koichi recalls how his grandma revealed this to him on her deathbed. This is why Koichi began searching for Koji in the first place, and why he was at the train station chasing after him. Koji sees the similarities in the way they look, and begins to slowly piece together the puzzle. Screaming in pain from the revelation, Velgamon flies away. The kids catch up to Koji, who brings them up to speed on what happened. Koji is introduced to Patamon, whom he thanks for giving him the power to fusion evolve and also for helping the others find him. Koji recalls shortly after he arrived to the digital world, he received a message from Ophanimon, in which she promised that things will soon become clear to him. He suspects that she was referring to this link between he and Velgamon, so Koji abruptly runs off after him. Takuya tells the others to wait for him whilst he brings Koji back. After Takuya leaves, JP decides he doesn't want to wait around, so instead uses the time productively by going on a scouting mission to find any Digimon who may know more about the Rose Morning Star. JP shares with the others that he has been thinking about his purpose a lot, wondering what his role in their mission is, such as coming up with strategies to help gather information needed to help aid their journey. Zoe and Tommy are moved by JP's honesty and agree to join and help him. After walking for some time, the three of them discover train tracks. They follow the train tracks, which leads them to a junkyard. There they stumble upon Angler, one of the Trailmon, who reveals that they have entered the Trailmon graveyard. JP asks Angler if he knows anything about the Rose Morning Star. Angler admits he does, as he has been there before, but cites he is too weak right now to recall and begins to cough. The three of them fear that he will die if they don't do something. Angler asks the children to help him stand. To help, JP spirit evolves into Beetlemon. When Angler realizes that they can all spirit evolve, he hints to them that if they were to give him a bath, he may be able to recall the information about the Rose Morning Star. Angler continues to hold the promise of information over their heads, in exchange for favors. The kids eventually realize that he either has no information to give them or is taking advantage to get as many favors out of them as possible, so they decide to leave. Angler desperately recalls them. He begins to tear up, citing how he was enjoying their company as they are the first people who were ever nice to him. Moved by his monologue, the kids offer to help him for as long as he wants. Angler is living the good life, as he's getting pampered and given chocolates. As the kids are about to take their leave, Angler advises that he never lied about having visited the Rose Morning Star. He begins to cough again. The bolts keeping him together begin to dislodge. This makes the kids all but certain that he is now about to pass. They break down as it appears he has died. Well, it turns out, unknown to even Angler himself, he was merely undergoing a recovery process by shedding his old frame for a newer one. Angry at him, the trio Beast Spirit evolve so they can teach Angler a lesson. They decide to leave him be as he begins to cry. They do, however, hitch a ride on Angler, and he informs them that he had once carried a container to a castle under the Rose Morning Star on orders from Cherubimon. He also speculates that inside the container was either Seraphimon or Aphanimon. Knowing that Seraphimon was reborn as Patamon, the kids deduce that it must have been Aphanimon who was transported to the castle. Koji takes shelter in a ditch to escape a windstorm. He contemplates his various encounters with Duskmon. He wonders as to why Duskmon peeked into his memories. Koji wonders if Duskmon is simply using him, or if Duskmon is in fact him, given their resemblance. Koji notices that the storm has cleared, so continues his route towards Duskmon. Zoe, JP and Tommy return to the meeting place only to find that Patamon, Nemon and Bulkamon have wandered off as well. They debate for some time on what to do. Unable to reach Takuya or Koji on their detectors, they decide to wait for them all to return. Duskmon continues to be tormented over the knowledge that Koji is his twin. Sensing he may lose control over Koichi, Cherubimon reminds him of how much he and his mother had suffered. Cherubimon implants in his mind how his father left his mother for another woman, and how Koji was brought up normally, whereas he and his mother had to struggle to get by. Now overcome by anger and jealousy, Cherubimon manages to convince him that Koji is the one responsible for their mother's suffering, and cites how light is the harbinger of pain. Duskmon slide evolves to Valgamon and begins to seek out Koji. Cherubimon laughs at how easy it was to manipulate Koichi. Bulkamon and Nemon search for Patamon, who has wandered off on his own. When they find him, Patamon tells them that he has something to show them. As Bulkamon follows him, he bumps into Takuya. Patamon says he knows where Koji is and continues forward with the others. Zoe, JP and Tommy agree that it does not feel right to simply sit around, so they decide to return to Angler. Valgamon finds Koji and attacks him. He attempts to talk to Valgamon, citing he knows he's human, and highlights how Cherubimon simply wishes to destroy the world. Valgamon slide evolves to Duskmon and attacks. When Beowulfmon asks him why he chooses to side with evil, Duskmon reveals that he is Koichi Kimura, Koji's twin brother. He explains that when their parents divorced, they were both separated as Koji was taken under the wing of their father, whilst Koichi remained with their mother. He reveals that their mother, whom Koji had thought to be dead, is in fact still alive. Duskmon vents his frustration, citing how their father left their mother to be with another woman, which left her depressed. Koji begins to believe Koichi. Cherubimon's influence over Koichi makes him attack Koji once again. For a brief moment, Koji sees Koichi in his human form. Distracted, Koji lets his guard down. Duskmon uses his deadly gaze attack at point-blank range, which causes Koji to revert back to his human form. Duskmon then slide evolves to Valgamon and launches his Dark Obliteration attack. Takuya arrives just in the nick of time to push Koji out of harm's way. Patamon also arrives and tries to attack Valgamon. When Takuya urges Koji to evolve, Koji refuses. He informs Takuya that Valgamon is his twin, citing how Cherubimon has been using him against them the whole time. Takuya recalls a memory of he and his little brother, where he and Shinya were playing a video game, but Shinya would not allow him to have a turn. Takuya, becoming frustrated, voices how unfair Shinya is being. Takuya becomes more angered when his mother scolds him instead. He vents to his mom how she always sides with the younger sibling. Takuya takes a walk outside in order to cool off. On his way back, it begins to rain. Shinya comes outside in the rain to give Takuya an umbrella, and the two make amends. Back to present time, Takuya realizes how much he loves his little brother and misses him. Takuya promises to help Koji save his twin, but cites the only way to do so is to fight in order to purify him. Koji refuses to, as he does not want to hurt his brother. Takuya, knowing that there's no choice but to fight, again tries to convince Koji. Koji does not budge. Takuya fusion evolves into Oldermon. Oldermon quickly finds himself in Valgamon's grip. Koji remembers Takuya's words that if his own brother won't save him, then who will? In order to help his friend and save his brother, Koji fusion evolves into Beowulfmon. By combining their strength, they manage to defeat Valgamon. After purifying Valgamon, Koichi's spirits of darkness are stored in his detector. Koichi collapses to the ground. Takuya recognizes him as the other Koji he saw at the train station during his brief stint in the real world. Koichi regains consciousness and quickly finds himself overwhelmed by guilt. Koji demands to know if everything he has told him as Duskmon was true. Koichi admits that everything is true and tells his story. He explains on her deathbed Koichi's grandmother told him that he had a brother named Koji. This was all she could tell him before she passed. He managed to track down his brother but repeatedly found himself unable to approach Koji. Koichi never told anyone about Koji, not even his mother, who he felt already had too much on her plate. When Koichi mentions seeing Koji on the train, Takuya advises that he remembers seeing him there. Takuya asks him how he entered the digital world without Trailmon. Koichi admits he doesn't remember how he got to the digital world. The last memory he had was falling down the stairs at the station. After that, everything became a big blur. The next thing he knew, he was in the digital world. Alone in this strange world, Koichi became consumed by anger and a feeling of betrayal that his father not only chose Koji, but also left his mother in a depressive state by leaving her. His pain attracted Cherubimon, who gave him the spirits of darkness. JP, Zoe and Tommy meet up with the others, and via Angler they head towards the Rose Morning Star. Zoe comments that the two brothers look really sad. As the gang stops for a break, Takuya decides to talk to Koji, who is unsure how to act as a brother. JP, Zoe and Tommy all give Koji support and advice. Koichi, who is sitting alone, wonders why the others don't hate him after all the bad things he has done to them. Patamon talks to Koichi and tells him that darkness isn't evil unless you let it be. Patamon advises the others that he senses something is coming. Lo and behold, it turns out to be none other than Cherubimon, who pulled a Thanos move and decided to see out the mission himself, going on to attack the kids. The team are ready to teach the deviant Digimon a lesson as they go on to take their spirit forms. Their attacks prove to be no effect, and Beowulfmon is forced to use his body to protect a defenseless Koichi from Cherubimon's attack. The children revert to their human forms, leaving Koichi as the last one standing. Cherubimon tells him that he's disappointed that he was defeated so easily by the Digidestined. Koichi voices how Cherubimon simply used and manipulated him, which is something Cherubimon vehemently denies. Cherubimon claims that he tried to give the spirits of darkness to many before Koichi, but the spirits rejected them all. Cherubimon highlights how the spirits of darkness will only accept someone with a truly dark heart. He offers Koichi the option to return to him. Koichi admits that everything Cherubimon has said is true, but he doesn't want revenge anymore. Koichi states he would rather die than betray his brother, so Cherubimon begins to make his move. When Koji cries out Koichi's name, his detector begins to glow and surrounds Koichi in light. From the light, a new detector is created and the purified spirits of darkness enter it. Koichi realizes that he doesn't have to be afraid anymore, which enables him to human spirit evolve into Lowermon. Lowermon manages to bring Cherubimon to his knees. When Cherubimon calls upon his lightning spear, Koichi slide evolves to his beast form, Jaeger Lowermon. Jaeger Lowermon launches a barrage of attacks and ends the battle by delivering a fatal blow. As Cherubimon begins to dissolve, JP notices that there is no fractal code. Koichi highlights how this Cherubimon was a mere projection. The real Cherubimon can be heard saying he is impressed by Koichi's ability in unlocking the true power of darkness. Cherubimon states that he looks forward to meeting him in person at the Rose Morning Star. Koichi decides to head out on his own and tells the others to return home. Koji refuses, saying that darkness is weak without light. The others agree and decide to come along as they also need to save Ophanimon. Finally arriving at the Rose Morning Star, the group is contacted by Ophanimon, who warns them that Cherubimon is expecting them. She is unable to say much more as streams of fractal code interrupt her signal. Tommy wonders what Cherubimon is using the fractal code for and suggests asking Koichi. Koichi admits that he doesn't know why Cherubimon is collecting data. Takuya and the others decide to press forward towards Cherubimon's castle. They spirit evolve and make their way to the gate. Cherubimon tries to convince the trapped Ophanimon to join his plight, which she declines. He goes on to tell her that she will regret her decision. The kids make it to the gate but find it is locked. They are then attacked by a couple of Phantomon. Pokemon warns the kids that the Phantomon's crystals can capture and hold them prisoner forever. Each Digidestined are taken captive one by one, leaving only Koichi behind. Knowing that he must act quickly, Koichi outsmarts the Phantomon and purifies them. Koji goes on to thank his brother, and the gate begins to open, so they proceed inside the castle. After climbing the stairwell, they reach the Hall of Shadows. Spirits begin to reach out for them, until Oryxmon forces the spirits to retreat upon them hearing the sound of his bell. He informs the kids that he is not their enemy. Pokemon cites how Oryxmon is a sentry designed to protect the treasures within the runes. Oryxmon offers to lead them to Ophanimon, but the group is still wary of him. Tensions are diffused upon them seeing Patamon sit on his shoulder, confirming to them that he is in fact a good Digimon. They find Ophanimon trapped within a light barrier. Beetomon and Kazimon are unable to free her. Ophanimon tells them not to worry about her. She reminds them of the tale of Lucemon. She explains that after Lucemon was defeated, she, Cherubimon and Seraphimon had been put in charge to govern and protect the digital world. Unfortunately, Cherubimon saw the digital world as a place in which naturally balances chaos and disorder. He was vehemently against any governance or centralization of the digital world, as he felt that would disturb the natural order of things. Ophanimon and Seraphimon disagreed with him, believing that upholding law and order as well as spreading love is what's best for the digital world. Hoping to find a way to reconcile their views with those of Cherubimon, the two decided they should meet in private. When Cherubimon discovered this, he felt that his views and beliefs were being undermined. Feelings of betrayal began to seep into Cherubimon's heart. He stood at the top of his castle, lamenting on how Seraphimon and his laws are designed in favor of only human-type Digimon. He decides to give the beast types a new system of order. Unbeknown to him, the Dark Area's magic surrounds him in the form of a cloud, which slowly begins to corrupt him. Cherubimon turns the beast-type Digimon against his two comrades. After Cherubimon struck down Seraphimon, Ophanimon begs him to spare Seraphimon. Her wish was granted, but Cherubimon imprisoned her in the Rose Morning Star. Zoe cites how Cherubimon must have granted her wish due to having feelings for her. Cherubimon then began to take the fractal code from all over the digital world, which led to its foundations becoming unstable. Ophanimon reached out to the human world, where she found 5 pure-hearted humans to aid her. Before she can finish her story, Cherubimon appears. He cites how foolish Ophanimon is, as he intentionally allowed the children to come to the castle. He cites he can now take their spirits. He thanks Ophanimon and the Digidestined for enabling his plan to finally come to fruition. Stating that Oryxmon has outlived his usefulness, Cherubimon destroys him. Cherubimon then taunts Koichi, saying that he was only a pawn. Enraged, Koichi attacks Cherubimon, but is unable to lay a scratch on him. The reason being is that Koichi's attacks are weaker, given that there is no darkness around them, which is where he draws his power from. Cherubimon tries to take back the spirits of darkness and attacks Koichi. Koji and Takuya quickly fusion evolve into Oldermon and Beowulfmon and manage to save Koichi. Patamon and Ophanimon deduce that the light surrounding the light barrier is causing the attacks to misfire, so Takuya and Koji decide to go outside, while the others try to free Ophanimon. They realize they can free her by removing the beams of light which are being produced by the mirrors surrounding Ophanimon, so they set about destroying the mirrors around her. Koji and Takuya are completely outmatched and are forced to revert to their human forms after sustaining continuous damage. Cherubimon steals both their detectors, leaving them struggling at the edge of a cliff, while he goes back to Ophanimon's prison to take the others' detectors too. As the others continue their attempts to free Ophanimon, Cherubimon manages to pull off a surprise attack on Beetomon, forcing him to revert back to his human form, thus allowing Cherubimon to steal JP's detector. Lowelmon and Kumamon slide evolve to their beast spirits in order to hold him off, while Zephyrmon focuses on helping free Ophanimon. The two are quickly defeated and their detectors are stolen. Now the only one with a detector left is Zephyrmon, who is forced to evade Cherubimon's attacks while simultaneously attempting to free Ophanimon. Ophanimon pleads with Zephyrmon to forget about her and save herself. Just as Cherubimon is about to strike, Ophanimon manages to break free from her prison and protects Zephyrmon. The two celestial Digimon begin to fight. Aphanimon tells Cherubimon that she can help him become good again. He lets his guard down momentarily but realizes too late that it was only a ploy to enable Aphanimon to steal the detectors and return them to the children. She teleports all the kids outside and leaves Koji and Takuya in charge of protecting the others while she resumes battle. She manages to incapacitate Cherubimon but is unable to go on and uses the last of her power to transform Koji and Takuya's detectors. She tells the two to combine all their spirits as she goes on to revert into a Digi-Egg. Realizing that they now have all the spirits of the legendary warriors, Takuya and Koji divide the spirits between them, which enables them to undergo unified spirit evolution.
Wind into flame! Ice into flame!
Thunder into light! Darkness into light! Unity execute! Unified spirit evolution! Emperor Draymond! Unity execute! Unified spirit evolution!
Takuya and Koji realize that their teammates are vulnerable without their spirits, so Takuya takes them someplace safe while Koji holds off Cherubimon. Takuya rejoins the fight, with Bulkamon having realized that Cherubimon's attacks have become unfocused, which he considers is a good sign. Takuya and Koji's overwhelming strength appears to have shaken Cherubimon. Cherubimon boasts about how powerful he is, but Koji informs him that although he is powerful, he's no match for them, as they fight in the name of friendship, whereas he only fights for himself. Emperor Greymon unleashes his Pyro Dragon's attack, which sends Cherubimon crashing into the castle. The castle begins to crumble, and the two of them save the other Digidestined and flee the area. Now safe, the children debate whether or not Cherubimon was defeated. Koichi believes Cherubimon to be alive. Zoe again notices that Koichi seems agitated, and this time she reaches out to him to let him know that they are all friends. After Zoe encourages him to open up, Koichi attempts to talk to Koji, but before he can, Ice Devimon emerges from the depths of the castle and attacks. Bulkamon reveals that Ice Devimon slaughtered dozens of Digimon in order to consume their data, which made him so powerful that not even Cherubimon could defeat him. Instead, he was imprisoned in the castle that was until its destruction. Ice Devimon begins to wonder if human data tastes good. He also confirms that he was the one who ate the Digimon whose spirits are now trapped in the Hall of Shadows, the same spirits that tried to grab the kids earlier. When Takuya and Koji prepare to evolve, Ice Devimon freezes their detectors. JP, Tommy, Zoe and Koichi each spirit evolve and attack Ice Devimon. He simply freezes Beetomon and Kazimon, and he begins to pick them off one by one. Tommy and Koichi both slide evolve to Korikakumon and Jaeger-Lowelmon. Ice Devimon becomes bored, so he traps Takuya and Koji in an ice force field. As the ice begins to take hold, Koji pushes Takuya away to protect him. Koji is then attacked by tendrils of ice. Hearing Koji in pain, Koichi becomes angry and destroys the force field. Takuya immediately wants to fight, but Koji tells him that they'll only get in the way, so the two back off, leaving the fight in Koichi's hands. Koichi and Ice Devimon begin to fight in midair. Koichi instructs Korikakumon to free the others. Beetomon and Kazimon slide evolve to Metal Kabuterimon and Zephyrmon. Korikakumon, Metal Kabuterimon and Zephyrmon all attack Ice Devimon at once, and the Jaeger-Lowelmon delivers the finishing blow. He then slide evolves back to Lowelmon and scans Ice Devimon's data. Exhausted, Koichi returns to his human form and collapses. Koji helps him up, whilst Takuya declares that Koichi is without a shadow of a doubt a member of the team. The ice encasing Koji and Takuya's detectors thaws out. The gang notices fractal code glowing some distance away. Cherubimon is revealed to be alive. Zoe, Tommy, JP and Koichi lend Koji and Takuya their spirits, encouraging them both before they leave to take on Cherubimon. Patamon decides he will cook them lunch. Zoe agrees to allow the two to take on a date, whilst Tommy says he will kiss them. Koichi gives the two his blessing, citing he believes in them both. Takuya and Koji unified spirit evolve into Emperor Greymon and Magna Garurumon. They fly off to confront Cherubimon whilst the others cheer them on. They confront Cherubimon, who has formed all the data he had collected into an orb. Upon consuming the orb, he becomes exponentially more powerful. Koji begins to engage in a grueling battle with Cherubimon while Takuya powers up for a strong attack. Koji manages to maneuver Cherubimon into Takuya's line of sight. Takuya goes on to blow off the lower half of Cherubimon's body. Unfortunately, Cherubimon tanks the hit. He simply regenerates whilst growing exponentially in size. After a series of attacks, Cherubimon manages to knock Takuya and Koji unconscious. Takuya finds himself in a dream. In the dream, Takuya is laying his head on Zoe's lap. He asks her where they are, and she reminds him of the date she promised he could take her on once he returned victorious. Takuya wakes up and checks up on Koji. Koji is unharmed, so they recommence battle. Koji notices that whenever Cherubimon is about to attack them, a light comes from his forehead. He deduces that it must be where Cherubimon's weak spot is. Koji says he will act as Takuya's shield, knowing that although his armor is not as strong, Takuya's sword is the only thing powerful enough to hurt Cherubimon. They proceed with their plan. After valiantly taking multiple hits, Koji eventually collapses. His efforts are not in vain, as Takuya is now in striking range and lands a fatal strike to Cherubimon's head. The data Cherubimon had ingested is released. Takuya purifies Cherubimon, who reverts back into his good self. Upon seeing the spirits of his old friends, Cherubimon begins to cry. Takuya rushes over to an exhausted Koji and carries him on his back as both return to the others. The data that Cherubimon had assimilated falls into the core of the digital world. There, Lucemon scoffs at Cherubimon's failure and releases his royal knights. The Digidestined, along with Bulkamon, Patamon and Nemon, celebrate Cherubimon's defeat. Koji notices that although Cherubimon has been defeated, the data he had stolen has not returned to the digital world. Several mountains begin to disappear as though their data had been scanned, so the group decide to check it out. Upon reaching the area where the mountains were, they are attacked by Barrowmon, who blocks their path. They believe he to be responsible for making the mountains disappear, so they all spirit evolve. Barrowmon quickly diffuses things by telling them that he has no intention of fighting the legendary warriors. He goes on to warn them of the return of Lucemon. Barrowmon leads them to the digital world's tunnel of history. He informs them that Cherubimon was merely Lucemon's puppet, simply a tool he used to collect data. Barrowmon prophesizes that the digital world will be destroyed. He tells the children to return home, as the cause they are fighting for is already lost. Takuya and the others refuse to give up. They cite that although they're human, they're also Digimon too, and proud ones at that. Barrowmon dismisses their pride, but they are interrupted when the tunnel of history is scanned and begins to collapse around the kids. From the rubble emerges Lucemon's royal knights, Dynasmon and Crusadermon. The kid spirit and fusion evolve but are no match for the knights. After the knights subdue Aldermon and Beowulfmon, Zoe, Tommy, JP and Koichi slide evolve to their beast forms, but they too are swiftly defeated. They lend their spirits to Takuya and Koji, which enables them to unified spirit evolve into Emperor Greymon and Magna Garurumon. Barrowmon, although impressed by the two, cites that he has already seen the future and knows they are still no match for the knights. As predicted by Barrowmon, they are easily defeated. Crusadermon and Dynasmon attempt to finish them off, but Barrowmon steps in and protects them. He uses his life force to do so, which ultimately leads to his demise. The aftershocks from the knight's attacks renders the kids unconscious. They lay there with their fractal code exposed, with the exception of Koichi, who appears to be unharmed. Intrigued by human data, the royal knights decide to scan them, but Emperor Greymon and Magna Garurumon take a stand. Dynasmon's lust for battle takes over, which causes him to lose control. He begins to charge up his attack. Crusadermon tries to talk her partner down, citing he will destroy them all. Dynasmon releases his attack. The next scene pans to the kids who have landed on a moon with only Koichi remaining conscious. Koichi realizes that he can now levitate, so he travels up the crater to seek answers. he bumps into a few Starmon, who cite they have landed on one of the digital world's 3 moons. Koichi wonders why he was the only one to remain unharmed. Whilst en route to the moon's base, Pokemon notes that Koichi seems just fine despite everyone else's injuries. Nemon dismisses it as luck, but Koichi is troubled by the fact that he was the only one to remain unscathed. While the others are taken to the infirmary, Pokemon, Nemon, Patamon and Koichi go to the base's bridge. Upon reaching the base's bridge, they are greeted by Super Starmon, who questions them about the activities going on in the digital world. Koichi informs him of the Royal Knights and how they work for Lucemon. We find out that Dynasmon and Crusadermon have made a deal with Lucemon. After they help revive him, Lucemon will aid them in conquering the human world. The other Digidestined have recuperated and decide they must make their way back to the digital world. Having no access to a Trailmon, they spirit evolve and begin using their best attacks on Takuya's command, until they realize that they weren't shooting at anything at all. They question Takuya and he admits that he thought the forces from their blasts would move the moon closer to the digital world. Unimpressed, they leave Takuya behind. Tommy attempts to use the lack of gravity to his benefit by jumping. His idea fails, but it does offer some entertainment for the local Gotsumon. Koji as Kendo Garurumon tries his own method by speeding his way to the digital world, but he is caught in what the Gotsumon describe as an electromagnetic stream. Koichi thinks the reason they may have been able to enter the moon might have been because they bypassed the stream due to a distortion caused by the Royal Knights attack. A group of Bergamon offer the kids their rocket. The kids devise a plan to use the rocket to escape. They build a giant slingshot to propel the rocket to the digital world. All seems to be going well. That is until the rocket begins to veer off course. Takuya B-Spirit evolves into Burning Greymon and helps push the rocket along. They reach the electromagnetic stream, which briefly electrocutes the Digidestined. The stream subsides in time for them to focus on evading the incoming asteroids. Upon clearing the stream, they land on a railway. They come across one of the Trailmon named Mole. Mole agrees to push them the rest of the way to the digital world. The Digidestined return to the digital world and arrive in a place called the Steel Town. They encounter a Sagittariumon, who demands that they hand over their possessions. Knowing that they can easily handle it if Sagittariumon decides to get violent, the kids calmly refuse. 4 other kids show up with Angemon, which forces Sagittariumon to retreat. Tommy recognizes 2 of the kids, whose names are Katsuharu and Teppei. Those 2 were the bullies who pushed him onto the Trailmon in the first episode. The 2 bullies appear to apologize to Tommy. The Digidestined try to talk the kids into leaving the digital world, but they do not listen and walk off. Angemon explains to Takuya, Koji and Koichi that the 4 kids were among the many others Ophanimon had summoned to the digital world, but these kids were not chosen to receive a spirit. Ophanimon had assigned Angemon to convince them to go home, but they would not listen to him. In order to keep them safe, he travelled with them. Meanwhile, Teppei confronts Tommy. Katsuharu shows up and scolds Teppei for picking a fight given that they are outnumbered. He cites Tommy as weak as he is hiding behind stronger kids. Tommy realizes that he is in fact strong and they are the ones who are weak, as they have been hiding behind Angemon since arriving in the digital world. Sagittariumon returns and brings with him a large group of Kentaromon. Angemon seems to have things under control, well that is until more Kentaromon sneak up behind them. During the fight, Teppei falls down and is about to be run over by the stampede. Katsuharu is frozen in fear and shock. Tommy dives in and saves Teppei. In order to protect the 2 bullies, Tommy B-Spirit evolves into Korikakumon. The other Digidestined Spirit evolved too in order to help out. As he is being told off by Bokumon, Katsuharu realizes how brave Tommy is, acknowledging how wrong he was and cites that Tommy was stronger than him in ways that mattered most. Angemon defeats Sagittariumon, which causes the remaining frightened Kentaromon to leave. Katsuharu and Teppei apologize to Tommy. The 4 kids decide it's time to return home. Unfortunately, the Royal Knights arrive and destroy Angemon. The Knights go on to abduct Katsuharu and the other kids. With complete disregard of his own safety, Tommy chases after them and manages to hang on to the Knights as they fly away. As the Digidestined try to catch up with Tommy, they are approached by the Trailmon. They ask the Trailmon to help them. The Trailmon inform them that the kids are being taken to a place called the Beanstalk Village, but the Trailmon are too afraid to take them there. All but 1 of the Trailmon run away. The Royal Knights arrive at the Beanstalk village. Katsuharu and Teppei cite how they've been to the village before. Before they can explain any further, they see a group of badly injured Mamimon and rush to their aid. Katsuharu goes on to reprimand the Royal Knights. Dynasmon cites how the Mamimon brought it upon themselves by not revealing the location of the key. Takuya and the others manage to hitch a ride on the Trailmon called Worm. The Knights lock Tommy and the other kids up, along with the Mamimon. The Mamimon elder explains when Katsuharu and his friends first visited, they helped them build the Mamimon's village and plant the beanstalk. The two Royal Knights came by one day and asked for the village's key. Having access to the key would enable the Knights to locate the beanstalk's fractal code, which is what they are after. Since the digital world was brought into disarray by the Royal Knights, the beanstalk is the only thing keeping them alive. So they told the Knights that they do not know where the key is, resulting in them being locked up. Takuya and the others are unable to progress any further due to a broken bridge. They start to rebuild the bridge from the tracks behind Worm. Worm tries to talk the kids out of continuing, citing that they are fighting a lost cause. While the other kids listen tentatively to Worm, Takuya continues to patch up the track. Just as a true leader would, he inspires Worm and the others, citing that the digital world is their second home, adding that so long as they keep pushing forward, they will win. Tommy and the others, with some help from the Mamimon, manage to break free from their prison. Unfortunately, the Elder is captured by Dynasmon. Lucemon calls to his knights, commanding that they bring him more data. Katsuharu pleads with the knights to let the Elder go. Crusadermon doesn't understand why he would plead for the life of such an ordinary Digimon. Katsuharu cites how the Mamimon were nothing but kind to his group, adding that he considers them a friend. Crusadermon scoffs at him and begins to scan Katsuharu's fractal code. The others reach the village just in the nick of time. Crusadermon attempts to attack the kids, but Worm fires back an attack of his own. Takuya and Koji unified spirit evolve into Emperor Greymon and Magna Garurumon. Although they fare better this time round, Crusadermon checkmates Koji by capturing Koichi. Distracted by this, Takuya finds himself caught by Dynasmon too, but Koji does manage to free his brother. Sensing Lucemon is growing impatient with them, Crusadermon advises her partner that they need to wrap things up. The Knights completely subdue Takuya and Koji. To save his family and friends, the Elder tells Dynasmon that the key's location is at the top of the beanstalk. The Knights go on to scan the fractal code of the village, which causes it to disappear. The kids manage to narrowly escape via Worm. The Elder shows Katsuharu that all is not lost, as he has kept a spare beanstalk seed, which means that they will be able to rebuild their village. Before Katsuharu and the others depart the digital world via Worm, Katsuharu lets Tommy get back at him by asking Tommy to push him on the train. The gang next come across the village of beginnings where Digimon are born. They attempt to explore, but are blocked from proceeding any further by the caretaker, Swanmon. Upon making it clear that they have not come to harm the Digi-Eggs, Swanmon lets them pass. She shows them where the newborn baby Digimon live. Swanmon explains that she has been feeling overwhelmed as of late due to the number of babies in her care. She tells them that the Trailmon would normally deliver the babies to their designated areas within the digital world. Due to the ensuing chaos, the Trailmon are too frightened to come by anymore. Swanmon cites that they are hiding in the tunnel. The kids lend her a hand by helping Swanmon with various chores. Once the babies are all fast asleep, they all rest up over some tea. The kids take a brief moment to recount their journey and growth. The Digidestined resolve to save their second home, so decide to go and talk with the Trailmon. They find Angler and the other Trailmon, but the kids struggle to talk sense into them. Crusadermon and Dynasmon arrive at the village, but only Swanmon is around to protect it. The kids return to find her gravely injured. Furious at the two knights, Takuya and Koji unified spirit evolve into Emperor Greymon and Magna Garurumon. Dynasmon and Crusadermon cite they have no intention to fight the two, as they have only come to capture the village's fractal code. Takuya and Koji try to hold off Dynasmon and Crusadermon. The other kids realize that Takuya and Koji are not attacking. They realize the reason must be that the two of them are worried about the Digi-Eggs within the village. The other Digidestined begin to remove the Digi-Eggs one by one. Zoe rushes over to the Trailmon, pleading with them for their help, citing that the innocent babies will not survive if the Trailmon do not come to their aid. She manages to convince the Trailmon to help out. Takuya and Koji are on their last legs as they revert back to their human form. The two of them insult Lucemon, which angers Dynasmon, causing him to balloon in size. The babies of the village come together to take a stand. They combine their might to dispel Dynasmon's attack. Offended by this act of rebellion, the two knights prepare to destroy the babies. 4 eggs from inside one of the Trailmon starts to glow. The eggs float over to the village, and the spare spirits inside the kids' detectors react with the eggs. The eggs transform into the human spirits of the legendary warriors Ranumon, Mercurymon, Arbomon, and Grumblemon. The Digidestined also spirit evolve. Now, with the 10 human spirits fighting in one place together, they overwhelm Crusadermon and Dynasmon, causing the two to retreat, but not before the knights are able to scan the village's code. All is not lost as the babies and the Digi-Eggs have been saved. Zoe thanks the 4 legendary warriors who came to their aid as they turn back into Digi-Eggs and their spirits return back to the detectors they came from. Swanmon thanks the Digidestined and the Trailmon press forward to deliver the babies. Though they are disheartened by the loss of the village, the Digidestined take strength from the fact that all the spirits are on their side. Their musings are interrupted by a flock of Poyomon, who bring news of the village of Flame's imminent destruction by the hands of a scary Digimon. Realizing the village in question is the same one they all visited upon first arriving to the digital world, coupled with the fact that it is Bulkamon and Nemon's hometown, the Digidestined resolve to save it. Angler arrives and they hitch a ride. Lucamon grows more and more impatient for his revival. He orders his Royal Knights to gather more data. Skullsatamon terrorizes the resident Digimon into telling them the location of the fractal code. The Digidestined arrive and see Skullsatamon ravaging the land for its data. The remaining Digimon have little to no faith in the Digidestined's ability to help. They cite their initial hope for the Digidestined upon their arrival to the digital world has been dashed by the Royal Knight's rampage and the current state of the digital world. The Digidestined make it clear that even if they no longer believe in them, they will do everything in their power to protect their second home. The Digimon are inspired by their resolve and begin to root for them. Skullsatamon calls upon his brothers to help locate the village's fractal code. Takuya and Koji unified spirit evolve into Emperor Greymon and Magna Garurumon. One of the brothers manages to grab Biomon. Afraid for its life, Biomon discloses the location of the village's core. As a last-ditch effort, all the Digimon fight back. This gives Magna Garurumon and Emperor Greymon an opening as they go on to eliminate the Skullsatamon brothers. As they are all celebrating, Crusadermon takes the opportunity to scan the village's code. The Digimon who live there are inspired and motivated, now believing that if they fight as one and work together, they will be able to overcome any obstacle. They take solace in the fact that they managed to survive and live to fight another day. The Gotsumon Koji befriended many episodes prior is seen trying to protect some sacred jewels which some Knightmon under the Royal Knight's command are after. Right as Gotsumon is about to be crushed, the Digidestined arrive and fight off the Knightmon. Unfortunately, the Royal Knights also arrive and begin scanning the area with complete disregard to the safety of their own men. Dynasmon explains that the 3 areas left are the forest, ice, and light areas. Gotsumon faints after witnessing his whole village destroyed. Seeing the destruction, Takuya begins to lose faith in himself and his strength, but the others talk him into continuing. Gotsumon decides to tag along with the Digidestined to help protect other areas. Dynasmon and Crusadermon are already at Seraphimon's castle in the forest area. They are unable to enter due to a powerful barrier surrounding its exterior. Dynasmon and Crusadermon take flight to get a new angle on the situation. Magna Garurumon and Gotsumon distract the Knightmon while the others head to the castle. The Knights attack the barrier's highest point, which is its weakest point. They anticipate by doing so it will cause a cascading collapse. Takuya Unified Spirit evolves into Emperor Greymon, and a message from his detector opens a hole in the barrier to allow them through. At the castle front, the Knightmon prove to be more troublesome than anticipated. Despite being blown to pieces, they display the ability to regenerate. Magna Garurumon soon runs out of ammo. Crusadermon decides to support her troops. Koji sees her coming, so he discards his armor ready to take on the Royal Knight in close combat. Takuya's detector leads the Digidestined to a statue of the Celestial Digimon, which serves as the key to the area's data. Dynasmon uses his most powerful technique to take down both the barrier and the castle itself. The Digidestined only survived due to Sorcermon, whose spirit continued to protect the castle even after his passing. He uses the last of his strength to protect the kids and the data. Abiding by Sorcermon's final wish, Emperor Greymon takes on Dynasmon. Crusadermon gains the upper hand against Magna Garurumon. Feeling useless and wishing nothing more than to help, Gotsumon finds the strength to digivolve to Meteormon. Meteormon destroys the Knightmon, and it appears now the battle between the kids and the knights is on an equal footing. Dynasmon tricks Emperor Greymon into shooting the statue of the Celestial Digimon. After the knights scan the forest area, they take their leave. Crusadermon badly injures Meteormon, which causes him to de-digivolve back into Gotsumon. Emperor Greymon and Magna Garurumon are forced to save everyone instead of continuing the battle. Despite the loss, Gotsumon leaves the future of the digital world in the hands of the Digidestined. Sepikmon uses his boomerang to view not only the movements of the Royal Knights but also to monitor the state of the digital world. They believe the Knights will attack the Autumn Leaf Fair next, as it's the easiest of the two remaining locations to scan. The Digidestined begin setting up defenses as the populace evacuates from what will soon be a battleground. JP scrambles the town to set up a last line of defense. JP also hides the fractal code, whilst Tommy enlists the help of the Toucanmon to build a snow launcher. Toucanmon cites how much it appreciates their help even after everything the Toucanmon did to them. As the last train heads out, Sepikmon sees an aerial force led by Zambomon. The aerial force attempts to block the Royal Knights from entering the town. Takuya and Koji unified Spirit Evolve to provide backup. Despite their intervention, all but 2 members of the aerial force are killed. When the battle draws closer to the fairgrounds, the other Digidestined begin their intervention via hurling snow projectiles at the Knights. Crusadermon acknowledges that Emperor Greymon has improved since they last fought. The kids launch large snowballs at Crusadermon. Before Takuya can take advantage of the situation, Dynasmon attacks and drags him into the fairgrounds. Seeing Takuya in trouble, the kids attempt to launch a snowball at Dynasmon, but their close proximity to the town's heat tower melts the snowball before it can reach Dynasmon. The heat coming from the heat tower gives Emperor Greymon the strength to temporarily overpower Dynasmon. The others next attempt to help Koji via launching snowballs at Crusadermon. This causes Crusadermon to inadvertently launch her attack meant for Koji towards the others. Koji shields them with his body. Everyone is rendered unconscious with their fractal code exposed, everyone but Koichi. Koichi again wonders why he remains unaffected. Crusadermon reveals to him that he is a spirit in this world with no physical body to call his own. Before Crusadermon can attack his brother, Koji drags her away. The Digidestined had split up the area's fractal code. Dynasmon discovers this and goes on to collect each individual band of fractal code as Crusadermon has the kids preoccupied. Takuya manages to gain the upper hand against Crusadermon, but he is unable to stop the 2 Knights from collecting all the code. The Knights begin to make their way to Afanimon's castle, with the Digidestined following them in tow. Emperor Greymon, Magna Garurumon and the Digidestined manage to reach Afanimon's castle. As they enter, they find themselves in a library. The group meets Nefertimon inside, who lets them know that she is aware that they are in possession of the spirits of the legendary warriors. She then reveals to them that the books stored within the library contains all the information ever known to the digital world. Although Nefertimon is the librarian, she cites she does not know where the data key is. Koji suggests that they split into pairs so that they can search the library. Still reeling from the revelation that he has no physical form, Koichi completely withdraws within himself. Koji picks up on this and asks his twin if he's okay, which Koichi advises he is. Bokumon and Nemon head outside whilst Koichi and Koji head upstairs. Zoe chooses Takuya as her partner and they head to the basement. This leaves Tommy and JP to check the inner rooms. Instead of searching for the key, JP begins to do a magic trick in an attempt to cheer Tommy up. They both open up to one another regarding how scared they both are. In the basement, Zoe confesses to Takuya that the group are the first real friends she's ever had. She voices that she doesn't feel she will have trouble making friends again, as she likes the person she has become now. Takuya awkwardly reassures her by saying that he likes her too, which leaves them both red in the face. Zoe appears ready to admit her feelings for Takuya, but she finds that he has fallen asleep, so changes her mind. The kids meet back up in the main room and disclose to one another that they had no luck in finding the key. Bokumon reveals to Koichi that he knows what Crusadermon told him but promises not to tell the others. Nefertimon senses the Royal Knights fast approaching. Moments before the Knights knock the door down, Takuya and Koji unified Spirit Evolve. Crusadermon reveals that Nefertimon is in fact the key. Nefertimon asks Takuya and Koji to destroy her in order to protect Afanimon's castle. They refuse to, instead fly out the castle to fight the Royal Knights. They face off against the Royal Knights in hand-to-hand combat. The experience they have gained up to this point enables them for the first time to hold their own against Crusadermon and Dynasmon. Unfortunately, they are defeated when Lucemon himself intervenes from the dark area. The Royal Knights are able to take Nefertimon's data, which results in the total destruction of the digital world. Finally freed, Lucemon cites how they must all serve and give him his every desire. Takuya scolds Lucemon, citing he clearly thinks of everyone and everything as if they were a toy. Lucemon concurs this is exactly how he views everything. Lucemon then cites he has grown bored with the digital world, revealing that he plans to create a new world. The kids anger him when they refer to him as a petulant child at best. He attacks the children, but they're saved by Angler, who takes them to the moon where they'll be safe. The Digidestined arrive at the Yellow Moon. Koichi remembers what Crusademon told him, that he's just a spirit in the digital world and not a living being as the others. The kids become depressed as they look down upon the now decimated digital world. Takuya and Koji refuse to lose faith, with both citing that so long as they have the ability to become Digimon, all is not lost. Not everyone is convinced, which leads Takuya to question whether he's wrong for wanting to continue pushing forward. Via his detector, his human and beast spirits provide Takuya with the encouragement he needs to continue on. Crusademon and Dynasmon talk to Lucemon. Now that he is freed, they want what he promised them, the key to enter the human world so that they can enslave mankind. Lucemon informs them that he will not give them the key until all the Digidestined have been killed. Back at the moon, Zoe spots some floating bubbles. They all follow the bubbles, which leads them to a field full of Digi-Eggs and newborn Digimon. The Digidestined start playing with them and soon realise that they are the same Digimon that they had saved. Patamon notices 2 Digi-Eggs which are beginning to hatch. One hatches into Lopmon and the other into Salomon. The 3 Digimon begin to play with one another. Pokemon confirms those 2 eggs belonged to Ophanimon and Cherubimon, which means that all the celestial Digimon have been reunited. Realizing the 2 Royal Knights are fast approaching, the Digidestined prepare themselves. Takuya recounts his entire journey, the trials and tribulations, the growth he has undergone, the countless deaths of the Digimon whom helped them throughout their journey, and he witnessing the allure of evil which many, such as Cherubimon, had succumbed to. Aware of the number of times they could have just gone home but chose to stay, Takuya believes now more than ever that they must see their mission through. They all join forces to let Takuya and Koji unified spirit evolve into Emperor Greymon and Magna Garurumon. Crusademon is distracted due to the doubt which has crept in as to whether Lucemon will follow through with his promise. This doubt begins to drain her power. Due to how inextricably linked the 2 knights are, this doubt of hers drains Dynasmon too. Koji manages to incapacitate Crusademon and Takuya completely overpowers Dynasmon. Just as they are about to purify them, Lucemon shows up and scans the 2 knights, which enables him to digivolve to his chaos mode. Lucemon proclaims how every creature is precious to him. He cites he could not allow the knights to live a life of pain as they didn't accept the rules of life he set. Lucemon believes without he shepherding them, his vision of utopia will not work. The kids call BS and refuse to listen to him any further. Takuya and Koji valiantly attempt to take him on. Lucemon overwhelms them and beats the fractal code out of them. The impact of the battle causes the Yellow Moon to disintegrate. Lucemon destroys the other 2 moons of the digital world, leaving the Digidestined stranded in space on a floating piece of the moon. The kids begin to search for Takuya, Koji and the 3 celestial Digimon, fearing that they are dead. It turns out the 3 celestial Digimon created a force field encasing Takuya and Koji. The 5 of them reunite with the others. Lucemon makes his way to the dark area where he draws power from it in order to create a bridge to the human world. Whilst the kids strategize, Bulkamon spills the beans on Koichi after the kids force it out of him. All but Koji are present. They all feel bad for Koichi and wonder if there's anything they can do to help him. Koji cites to his brother as both are light and darkness, they are bound by destiny. Koji makes clear that he knows something is wrong as he too suffers when his twin does. The kids begin to see a bridge materialize which is made up of fractal code. Koichi makes Koji promise to meet their mum when he returns to the digital world. He also informs Koji of his secret. To reach the dark area, Patamon, Lopmon and Salomon power forward the piece of moon that they are standing on. When the data breaks through the barrier, Shibuya can be seen and all electronic devices display Lucemon on screen. Pokemon says that Digimon going to the human world is impossible. He refers to his book, which confirms if Digimon reached the human world it would lead to utter catastrophe. The Digidestined begin to make their way to the dark area. Upon arriving they are swiftly defeated. Lucemon combines the power of light and darkness which creates a sphere that encompasses all the kids but Lowermon, who was knocked clear of the area earlier. The Digidestined revert back to their human forms as Lucemon prepares to finish them off. Lucemon traps the kids inside a sphere of pure light. He then launches the power of darkness, which upon making contact with the light will cause the sphere to detonate. In order to protect the others, Koichi steps before Lucemon's power of darkness, going on to assimilate both the darkness and light into his own body. He is successful in saving everyone, but his body is destroyed. He tells the others how grateful he is for having met them, and wishes he could see them all when they return to the human world, although he suspects he will be unable to. After giving the spirits of darkness to Koji, Koichi's data is scanned by Lucemon. Furious at Lucemon for scanning Koichi, Takuya bursts into flames and Koji explodes into light. The spirits held within the others' detectors are released, which enables the two to unite all the legendary warriors into one being called Susanuomon.
How could you? Lucemon, you go too far! Ancient spirits unite!
Lucemon commands Susanuomon to submit to his will. Susanuomon instead vows to destroy Lucemon. Lucemon promptly attacks using his Paradise Lost technique, which was the same technique he used to destroy the moons. He is countered by Susanuomon with a punch to the face, marking the first time any of them have been able to harm the fallen angel. Lucemon displays his mastery of the powers of light and darkness. He adds that the time he was locked up in the dark area has allowed him to learn and harness many of his environmental attributes. As a result, he has become more powerful than ever, whilst becoming more bitter and resentful. Lucemon begins to beat Susanuomon mercilessly. Lucemon refuses to allow such a powerful being like Susanuomon to live. He afflicts Susanuomon with his Dead or Alive attack, which is the same attack that destroyed Koichi. Inside Susanuomon, Koji and Takuya think over all that has happened to them and reminisce the conversations they had with Koichi. They separate all the spirits in order to escape the attack. They then recombine and take Lucemon out. Using his celestial blade, Susanuomon defeats Lucemon and goes on to purify his data. They soon realize that they had only purified the data of Lucemon's good half. Lucemon's evil data absorbs the Dark Area's fractal code, which enables him to transform into his Shadow Lord mode. Now pure evil, the beast makes haste to reach the human world. The kids give chase. Lucemon begins to ascend into the human world through the underground train station, causing electrical surges to occur all across Shibuya. The electrical devices display a message from Lucemon which states, "You must choose to follow me or be destroyed." The Digidestined finally catch up with him, but Lucemon's ability to regenerate prevents them from stopping him. A parasitical being inside the beast with a soft, childlike voice commands it to attack the kids. The beast launches its Tide of Despair attack, which causes the kids to revert back into their human forms. Lucemon reaches the human world, hurling the Digidestined to the floor of the Shibuya train station. Just as Takuya is about to rush back into battle, Koji stops him and forces him to think things through. Recounting how the beast was able to regenerate from all their attacks, Takuya begins to lose the will to fight. Frustrated, Takuya attempts to push the fallen elevator, blocking their path. He cites to the others how weak he is for failing to even budget. Takuya breaks down from frustration and guilt. His desperation summons the spirit of Agunimon, whom helps him push over the elevator, showing that he is not alone. Agunimon tells Takuya that he just needs to have faith. The other human spirits are also standing by their side. Inspired, they all resolve to save the world. Bulkman points out how weird it is that the spirits just came to life. The legendary warriors give the kids some advice on how to defeat Lucemon. The spirits of the celestial Digimon Ophanimon, Cherubimon and Seraphimon also appear. Cherubimon informs the kids that although Lucemon is more powerful now, he is without consciousness. Seraphimon cites it will take all their strength combined to defeat Lucemon. The kids thank the legendary warriors and the three celestial Digimon as they go on to collectively ancient spirit evolve into Susanuomon. Susanuomon drags Lucemon Shadow Lord mode back into the void. The kids realize that Lucemon's true form is being held inside the large purple orb which the beast has been carrying around all this time. Susanuomon is knocked down as the beast goes on to pin them. Lucemon's true form speaks directly to the kids, citing he refuses to let them get in the way of his utopia as he goes on to consume what little remnants remained of the digital world. Susanuomon makes his way into the purple orb. Lucemon decides they are too late as the parasite launches numerous beams towards them. Susanuomon withstands the barrage of attacks and punches Lucemon's true form square in the face. Using his celestial blade, Susanuomon cuts the beast in half, releasing every piece of fractal code that he had stolen, thus restoring the digital world. Lucemon in his true form emerges and attempts to stab Susanuomon from behind. Susanuomon releases the Digidestin and splits into the 10 legendary warriors. The warriors carry swords created out of Susanuomon's cannon. Using the swords, each of the 10 legendary warriors slash Lucemon to pieces, thus destroying him forever. The legendary warriors thank the Digidestin for all they have done. The kids also thank the warriors for everything. The kids realize they have left lasting imprints on the warriors' spirits when they hear Kazimon speak Italian, something which it learnt from Zoe. With Lucemon's defeat, the digital world is freed from evil. The kids are now forced to return to the human world before Lucemon's portal closes. Pokemon tries to follow them, but Nemon and the celestial Digimon restrain him, reminding him that Digimon cannot survive in the real world. Pokemon is heartbroken, feeling utterly helpless to see his friends leave, so he promises to write a new book about their adventures in the digital world so that they will never be forgotten. As they return, Lowomon contacts Koji through his detector and informs him that Koichi is still alive, but Koji must hurry to his side. They arrive back in the human world and realize that no time has passed since they left. As of now, the authorities have come up with a logical explanation about Lucemon's appearance, blaming it on an electrical malfunction. Takuya recalls his return to the human world as Flamemon and leads the group down the steps where Koichi fell, but they find he is not there. They see a policewoman. Koji asks her if she knows where Koichi is. Koichi is revealed to be dead after the medics were unable to bring him back via resuscitation. The kids make their way to him, and Koji pleads with his brother to come back to him. The detectors begin to glow and miraculously bring Koichi back to life. The detectors then transform back into cell phones. We take a peek into the future where Takuya happily participates in his little brother's birthday party. Zoe and JP make new friends, whilst Koji finally manages to give his stepmom the flowers, and he also meets his biological mother with Koichi present. Tommy is seen playing soccer with Katsuharu and the others. The series comes to a close with Takuya citing no matter what happens, they will always be best friends forever. And that, ladies and gents, marks the end of Digimon Frontier. I have a few thoughts I would like to share, but before we get into it, I just wanted to thank those of you who have watched up to this point. My memory of watching Frontier when it first released was quite hazy at best. Upon re-watching it, I regained a new appreciation for what this show was and some of the ideas it brought to the table. The first few episodes felt like a breath of fresh air. The Digidestined having the ability to become Digimon was jarring at first, but having watched Tamers which toyed with this concept made it much more palatable. I think what also helped was the chemistry, for lack of a better term, between each of the characters. Many of the principal characters were clearly modelled off the Adventure 01 and some of the 02 kids. You can make the case that the most interesting aspects of those previous characters' personalities were given to the Frontier kids. Take Tommy for example. He, like TK, was the youngest and most unsure of himself in the beginning. To add, Tommy was dealing with the history of bullying too. I love the route the show went in telling his story as we saw him slowly overcome his fears and grow as a person. He became integral to the team, saving the others on countless number of occasions as well as diffusing disputes between members, especially Takuya and Koji. Zoe I liked, as she perfectly balanced the traits of Mimi and Sora. What made her even more interesting was her backstory, as her backstory is something many kids who relocate to a foreign country may also share. Seeing her overcome the hurt she felt from being ostracized by her peers was rewarding to see. It felt rewarding as she could have easily gone down the route of blaming others, which is true by all accounts. However, the show opted to leave viewers with a positive message where Zoe looked within herself and her outlook in order to overcome the resentment which had festered within her. This introspection enabled her to regain her confidence. JP is an interesting one, as although he has some similarities with Joe from Adventure 01, in my opinion JP had the potential to become one of the most compelling characters in the franchise's history. There are so many story threads they could have tackled with JP or better fleshed out. It's made clear JP has no difficulty in approaching strangers. He's clearly an extroverted person and appears to have friends, which is why it was so fascinating when he cited he still felt alone. The show sort of alludes to he having trust issues, as it's only towards the latter parts of the show he finally accepts that the other kids really do consider him a friend. The issue I have is it's never explored, or at least in any meaningful way, as to why he thinks the way he does. There are so many real life examples they could have used for what caused JP's struggles in the first place, just as they did for Tommy and Zoe. I still like JP as a character, but I feel they could have done more with him. Speaking of doing more, let's talk about Koji. Koji I found interesting in the beginning, as it was clear he was on his own mission. His coldness towards the others added to the sense of mystery. Now here's the thing, upon finding out that his reason for coming to the digital world was to meet with his destiny, it sort of broke the allure for me. The reason why is using an opaque term like his destiny without attaching anything to it, coupled with the fact that Koji never had a preconceived notion or idea of his destiny prior, made it much less compelling. Don't get me wrong, the later revelation of he having a twin was huge. Coupled with the way the story was slowly building up to it, by having us first meet Koichi when Takuya had returned to the human world, this did add an element of mystery, whilst making us question as to who this boy is and why he looks so similar to Koji. I personally would have found it much more interesting if, say, early on we saw Koji recalling memories of him knowing that his father was keeping a secret from him, and by knowing this, he was desperate to find out what the secret is. I like the angle of him trying to make things work with his new stepmother, because that's an issue many kids and step-parents face in real life. Albeit this subject was touched on in Tamers, with Jerry's relationship with her stepmother. I think there needed to be more to Koji and Koichi's backstory. The show doesn't really touch on at all why their parents separated, nor did it explain why their parents chose to split the kids up between them, why Koji was told that his mother died, and why they made it seem as though Koji's real mother didn't even know he existed. You guys can correct me in the comments if the original version did cover this, as the English dub failed to explain any of it. A small pet peeve I had was how Koji suddenly warmed up to the kids without any real direct relationship building between each member. He rarely would speak to the other members besides Takuya. I mean, I didn't mind that he did eventually warm up to the others, as this series' strength I still maintain is the chemistry between these characters. With all that said, it pains me to say this, but Takuya is actually the character whom was least interesting in my opinion. I mean, his backstory pertaining to his little brother is decent, as it's understandable an older sibling becoming frustrated with the younger one. But for majority of the show, the main hurdle he faced numerous times was that of the responsibility of a leader and learning to behave as one. Even his desire to go to the digital world was weak at best. We are clearly told early on that he was bored and wanted something to do. That's it. That was his whole reason for going to the digital world. So it's no surprise the constant issue he faced was one of wavering motivation. I mean, he came to the digital world for adventure, and after his losses mounted up, he began to rethink whether he wanted to continue or not. Don't get me wrong, he's not a bad character at all, as he does mature over the course of the series, so there is growth there. It just felt at times like he was your standard B-tier shonen anime protagonist. The story for the most part, up to the conclusion of the Cherubimon arc, was great. We were given a variety of different colours with the writing of each arc. For example, we got a sense of mystery from the Grumblemon arc, we got a slice of life style feel from the Ranamon arc, and the Mercurymon plus Duskmon arcs gave off some serious horror vibes at times. These many arcs all culminated nicely into the final showdown versus Cherubimon, which I would have been happy with if this turned out to be the final battle. This is not to say Lucemon is a terrible villain. I actually think the contrary. I think that Lucemon has all the makings to be an excellent villain. The only issue is, well, there's a few. The Royal Knights really killed the pacing of the show. Honestly, every episode at that point felt like filler. as it was clear that Lucemon would be the final villain. It also made clear in order for Lucemon to be resurrected, the fractal code of the digital world's key areas must first be taken. This is why in every episode that the kids attempt to stop the Knights just felt like filler, as the episodes fell into a clear pattern whereby at the end of them, the Knights managed to capture the code. I think they could have better allocated most of these episodes to introducing Lucemon. Lucemon instead was given 2 to 3 episodes, which is nowhere near long enough to flesh out a villain of this caliber, who has such a rich history within this series universe. I don't know about you guys, but I for one initially enjoyed the spirit evolution aspect of the show. It's a novel take to the norm we have gotten used to with the previous 3 seasons. The issue I found with this new evolution is the lack of clear grading between the forms. I kept finding myself placing them into boxes of Champion, Ultimate, Mega and so forth. The reason why is the Digimon the kids encounter all undergo regular Digivolution, whereas the children remain ungraded, or to better put it, follow an entirely different level grading structure. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but I would have liked them to have kept some level of continuity between these spirit evolutions and the prior series Digivolution levels. Overall, I think as a standalone series, Frontier is a fun watch, especially its first half. As much as I love some of the shakeups the show made to the status quo, the writing really does suffer towards the end, especially that ending. It just felt so rushed. As soon as the kids were back in the real world, they all parted ways back to their regular lives, but I digress. To conclude, Frontier, although not the best series for a multitude of reasons, I don't believe it deserves the hate it got when it first aired and continues to get to this day. If nothing else, the intro music for the English dub makes the entire existence of this series worth it for me. What are your thoughts on Frontier? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Or are you somewhere in the middle? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. On that note, until the next time, this is Ray, signing off. Peace.